The only people for me are the mad ones.
The world is filled with the boring and the barely conscious.
The misery loves company.
But we don't have to live this way.
Jessica and I are here to talk to those the system rejects, to radicals and thought criminals.
The ones who never yawn or say a commonplace thing, but push the boundaries of acceptable discourse.
Those who stare reality in the face and dare it to be different.
History isn't made by the timid, and fun is not had by the perpetually afraid.
We are the mad ones.
So let's get to it.
Welcome to the Mad Ones. I have gotten pretty damn tired of Heinz ketchup lately, so I went on Amazon and I ordered some of Whataburger's finest regular and spicy ketchup. Host Cam Harless. And with me, as always, is the winds are shifting. It's getting colder. Prep the vegetables. Make some bone broth. Where are my lentils? It's soup season. Miss Jessica Green.
Hello. I like that intro. That's very good. I was
so
scared. I was scared you were going to say that you ordered some catsup, at which point I would have quit the show. Yeah. So I'm relieved that you didn't.
As is correct and right and moral. So how are you? How's your week?
It's been good. Yeah. Been doing a lot of studying, and it's there's a crisp in the air. The veil is getting thinner, and so that gives us lots of interesting and spooky things to talk about forthcoming.
I am so stoked about the next month and the month after that and tonight. I mean, we have a lot of fun stuff that's coming up. Fun, and some of it's very dark, some of it's very deep. I mean, I'm all in. But before we get started on this episode, I do think that everyone should check out Run Your Mouth Coffee, rymcoffee.com. Get some of the bourbon barrel roast coffee. It's so good. 10% off if you use code The Mad Ones. Also, if you like beef jerky, there's some great beef jerky that you can also get 10% off if you use promo code Mad Ones, no the on this one, at righteousfelon.com. So do that. Try some Nelson Mandela. Get your meat on and just enjoy your life. But one last person I want to thank before we get to our guest, which is the guy who runs the MLGA network with me, Mr. Ryan Burgett of Techno Agorist.
Ryan.
He today decided he was going to help keep the lights on, as it were, and made a very kind donation to, really my personal life, but that I pay for all the things, so it works. So thanks, you, Ryan.
Uncle Ryan.
But let's get to our guest. Guests, plural. Joining us tonight is a podcasting power couple in the making. You can call them seekers. You can call them deep thinkers. You can probably get away with calling them conspiracy theorists, and they'd smile and nod. They're leaving the hellscapes that is California soon for the wildlands of Idaho to find some freedom. The hosts of the very soothing False Reality Check. Please welcome Buffalo Rambler and Legs.
Oh, what an intro.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you so much. Wow. Soothing,
the
huh?
inner Greg
He's
Carlin
right.
just came out, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in it.
It is very soothing. I'm not going to lie. There's a ASMR effect.
Oh.
So,
I wasn't intentionally going for the NPR, but it just ended up working out that way. So, yeah.
What was funny is when I started podcasting, I did a lot of the kind of NPR feel when I was talking. And I'm not saying you're doing this, but for me, I'd listen to it and I'd go, wow, that doesn't sound like me. And so I actually spent time, working that, because it's a nervous tick almost for me.
Yeah.
And so working that out and just being like, okay, you're just going to hear me. And so I'm very happy that I eventually did that because, I like to think my soothing voice doesn't sound like I'm going to be selling sweaty balls in the next.
That is a great classic bit. If you are too young to know what sweaty balls are, please go on YouTube and Google SNL sweaty balls, and your life will forever be enriched. But I want to ask you guys, you're fleeing California. Why? What are you doing that for? What could possibly possess a person to want to flee the wonderful state of California?
Yeah, I mean, we have the best governor in the world,
Oh,
right?
it's wonderful. Wonderful governing bodies here. love the people here, love the trash.
Most of them.
The mass trash lately has been phenomenal.
How's
Love
the
it.
poop in the streets? Do you feel like you're in India?
It's about the same. It's not quite India. It's not quite Frisco yet, but it's getting there.
Yeah.
I have
The
heard.
fact that you
and I
have to
can't-
qualify it as not quite India kind of tells you something. Sorry, Cam, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I haven't verified this information, but I have been told that there are designated shitting streets in India. And that's amazing to me that they have streets set aside for you to poop on.
Yeah.
It's organized.
They have,
I
they
did
have
not
that
know
in
that.
San Francisco too. It's called Everywhere.
So it is quite India, actually.
Yeah.
So when my friend, and she's a podcaster as well, Britt, she does the Freckles and Britt show. She was moving to my state, and she said, what do I expect there? Is it going to be at all like California? Is there going to be poo in the streets? And I said, no, nothing like that, but you might find chicken bones. And she thought I was kidding about that. And the very first day that she arrived here, she sent me a picture. She texted me of a chicken bone just lying on the sidewalk. And she goes, I thought you were kidding about this. And I said, no, you will find a trail leading along the path that person had walked as they ate their chicken and threw the bones out to the side, because we don't have poo in our streets, but we definitely have errant chicken bones just randomly around. So yeah,
What
you
is
take the
that?
good with the bad. I don't know. I think it's a cultural thing. Like,
For a second, I thought
acid-
chickens were falling apart. I didn't get
No.
that they were eating the chicken. I was like,
They're
oh,
eating
do
the
the chickens
chicken.
just fall apart?
It's a heavy
It's-
Santeria area.
Yeah, well, there is,
Okay.
so in the Chattahoochee River lately, they have been turning up with headless goats that
Oh,
have
or
been
just goat
floating down
heads.
the river. Or just goat heads,
Yeah.
So there is some Santeria and some hoodoo voodoo
Palo.
stuff that's going on around here.
Oh,
But yeah, the chicken bones are just from people who like wings. And there's a thing about just throwing them to the side. I don't know if they think, okay, these will just return to nature or what. But yeah, you've reached Atlanta when you start seeing the completely clean chicken bone lying on the sidewalk.
Oh, that's hilarious.
well, at least they're eating
Yeah.
all the chicken.
Yeah,
Right.
nothing's going to waste.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. You use all of the chicken wing, and
I
then
wonder- I wonder if the stray dogs there are happy with all the bones
Yeah.
laying around.
I'm not sure. Yeah, they don't leave a lot of chicken on the bone for the stray dogs, so I'm sure they would have some complaints about that. But
So I am curious because I haven't gotten through the full episode just yet. I tried to listen to your episode on Flat Earth with David Weiss
Oh, yeah.
today as I was working, which became very hard because it was a very mind intensive task. So I had to pause it and then I'll finish. But that is something that Jessica and I have been talking about with someone, because I've never been a flat earther. My wife has recently been getting a lot of TikToks about it, and so she's been talking to me about it somewhat lately. And I'm curious, and so I like you guys. I trust you guys. You're very nice, and you're not a drunk woman yelling about flat Earth. So, because Jessica can attest, she had a drunk woman yelling at her husband. about
two. They were a pair. They were tag teaming it. So I was hanging out with some people who were very inebriated, and my husband is a physicist.
Okay.
And these two very drunk Southern women were tag teaming him, trying to convince him of flat Earth. And I just don't feel like they were doing the argument justice. And his frustration was palpable, which was very entertaining for me. But I told Cam, I'd really like to hear about this from someone who actually knows what they're talking about, or, at least can offer something that's not coming out in like slurring speech,
And so no pressure. We're not saying, hey, be the experts on this right now. But I'm curious about, what you've learned, what you think about it, and kind of the basics, because it like I said, every time I've run into something, it's been Hicks for some reason. And you're not Hicks, so I want to hear your minds on
Not
this.
yet.
Well,
Partner.
you don't see us. You don't see us after hours,
Yeah.
so you don't know.
I put my cowboy hat away.
No, it's such a fascinating thing because I have like a huge science background. So to dismantle all of that, this world, like this is a globe, crust, mantle, core, you know, it's a little difficult for me, but some of the points that David make and other flat earthers make, just they make you think, and they do make sense. Like one of the points that kind of draws me to thinking we're on some kind of plane is, think of how fast we're spinning. You know, the Earth, how fast is the Earth spinning right now? I don't know that number.
It's 1,000 miles an hour at the equator.
Okay. And we're supposed to have a moon rotating around us that's going so fast, you know. And at the same time, there's all these planets that are like rotating. It's just at the speed we're going and what they tell us is going on, it doesn't make sense to me. I know I didn't explain that right. Maybe you can explain a little bit better.
Well, it's kind of like we're told all these things, right? But how can we really prove these things?
Yes.
And that's the whole thing. I mean, to believe in the globe model, you have to believe literally we're spinning 1,000 miles an hour around a sun. You know, that's also, we're probably going in orbit 66,000 miles per hour. I think that's the number that they say. And we're at a distance of, get this, when I was younger, the distance was different.
Yeah.
When we used to be like, I don't know, 50 million miles. Now it's like 100 million miles or close to 100.
From the sun.
They've revised the distance even for the moon and for the sun. If these numbers can be revised so much, and they didn't get it right in the first place. They need to prove that they're proving this for once and for all. And it just doesn't prove to me. The other thing too is, we did talk to Dave. He's really good, and he's probably the most like well-spoken on it in terms of just getting the message out there. But I've listened to people that don't consider themselves flat earthers, but they consider themselves as definitely not globe earthers, I guess you could say.
Okay. Okay.
Crow 777, he's a really good source, and he watches the sky. Like, he literally records the moon. He's the one who exposed the lunar wave. Have you guys heard of the lunar wave?
No.
So he records the moon for hours and hours on end. And he's noticed that at least during the equinoxes and possibly the solstices, a wave ripples across the moon, like a water on a pond. And you can capture that. And it's not an artifact. It's not a digital artifact as you see it with your eye. And then he captures it in digital as well. So things like that make me believe more in the old ways of growing up, where the world was made for us. We were here for this world, and you know, it's spiritual, and I'm perfectly fine with believing that. I don't know if it's a globe. I don't know if it's flat. I just know it's not what they tell us. That's what I believe.
Yeah, and the pilots, I guess there's stories about pilots too, that there's been situations where they've had to make emergency landings, you know, and you look at a map and you're like, okay, if you're going from California to Japan or something, you would think, oh, make an emergency landing in Hawaii, you know? But you look at the path that these pilots took to make these emergency landings, and they went to Alaska.
Yeah, which looks like it's out of the way if you look at our globe map. But if you look at the flat Earth projection map, it's actually just a straight line. And other flights like prove that beyond a doubt that there's something going on. Like, you can't fly across Antarctica. Like, the fastest trip between like the bottom of South America to Australia would be across Antarctica. You can't go across it. There's like a treaty that's in place till like 2041, and no one's allowed to question it. He goes like further into like Operation High Jump and things that happened right after World War II, where we literally took ships out to Antarctica and found like warm climate land. There were planes that observed this kind of stuff, and stuff was reported back. And all this stuff's just been glossed over throughout history. So I think there's more to meets the eye. I wouldn't consider myself a globe model person, but I also wouldn't put myself in the box of flat Earth. I think something's going on and we don't know. That's basically it.
So if I can ask, if you're not flat Earth, but you're not globe model, there's some middle ground there. What is that? What would that be thought of as? Like, are we talking like there's a dome shape with a flat bottom? Like, what are we thinking about here?
I don't know. I'm thinking that we're more in like I like that golf ball model, where we're just in like a divot, and we're surrounded by supposedly an ice wall, but outside beyond that ice wall, there's other divots
Yeah.
and other lands. I like that. I kind of like that model.
Yeah. I personally, I don't know if there's like a dome. I personally don't believe we actually ever go like into space. The Van Allen belt, it's really hard to cross. For some reason, we were able to cross and bring footage out of it, which if you put footage through an X-ray machine at the airport, you know that, film just corrupts and doesn't work. So how did we at that time have the technology to protect that film to go to the moon and come back? I don't think we ever went to the moon. I don't think we ever went to space. I feel like whatever's out there, the moon, the sun, the stars, God put those there. I don't know what they are. I don't know if they're a million light years away or if they're literally at the top of this quote unquote dome or whatever, the firmament or whatever God says in Genesis,
And the firmament is actually mentioned in Genesis. So it could be a thing.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Cam. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that I haven't backed off of the globe model. Because for me, I'm not really sure of the point in that in particular, because I kind of reject like everything else already that the official narrative is on for the most part. Like there's some stuff that I don't see it as super important to me in that way. But Malice talks about how you take the red pill but don't take the whole bottle. So I'm just curious, do you think that the flat earth is the whole bottle? Where do you think the whole bottle begins? I'm just curious because it's like there's some weird stuff that goes on that I'm just like, okay, so that I can't justify in this way. Like I said, I haven't looked into whether or not the earth is a globe. We're just taking that for granted. But where would you put the full bottle, in your opinion?
I don't think it's a red pill. I mean, it is a red pill to kind of consider it, right? But I think that it's actually a bottle of white pills, because to me, in the globe model, we're insignificant. We mean nothing. We're pond scum on the grand scheme of the universe. With the plain or flat model, we're everything. We're the reason for God's creation. To me, it makes a bigger impact, and it places more importance on the fact that we were put here for a reason. And that reason was to either take care and steward the land and provide for those we love and care for those we love. I personally believe the reason we're here is to discover love, true love, and to be able to give and receive it. And I think that's why we were here. It places the importance back on stuff that I would hear, like going to church, which, not to say that church is for everybody. And I actually don't go to church myself, but I always found comfort in the fact that there was somebody out there for us all. And not to say that the globe model can't have that too, but it was a method to deceive us from the start, to put the focus away from, our spirit roots or where we come from spiritually and religiously, and to take it back and make us insignificant, which we are not. We're not insignificant at all.
Yeah.
So I like a lot of what you're saying right there about the way that science has kind of robbed us of that connection to our spiritual being. And I also like the idea that just because something is, quote, settled science doesn't mean that you're not allowed to question it. So even if I have a hard time disengaging from the globe model, which I do for various reasons, because it's like, why would every other observable object in space be a sphere? Like they're like things form spherically because of gravitation. We see that like in smaller scales on the planet, like on our level down here, even down to the way that like mushrooms or trees or bubbles in water form because of the way that gravity has a pull on them. So it makes sense for me for objects, very large objects in space, to have a spherical shape. So that's what maybe keeps me from disengaging from the idea of a globe model, is because when we do look out, I can point my own telescope sitting on the ground into space and see the planet Saturn. I see it with its rings. I see that it's round. Like I've looked at the moon. You can see the contour of it in a telescope. So those are just things that I've personally observed. However, that doesn't mean that it's not possible that I'm influenced by what I'm told is true, and that my observations then are changed. Because Jordan Peterson talks a little bit about this, how once we've reached a certain age, we develop sort of a visual picture of the world around us. So as we're passing through our environment, we've kind of got it into our heads what trees look like, what houses look like. And so we don't actually observe everything as we pass through it. So you're driving a car, you pass by houses and trees, you don't actually observe them, you partially create them in your mind. And I think there's truth to that. So your explanation of flat Earth does give me something to think about in that regard. How much of what I observe in my telescope in my front yard is influenced by what I'm told is true? And I think that is an important question.
Yeah. There's footage out there of stars using a camera that's like super zoomed in.
Not a camera, it's a
lens,
a Nikon like actual camera that's attached to a very professional, I guess you call it telescope, right?
Yeah, I think so. And if you look at that footage, the stars, they just geometric patterns,
like sacred geometric
patterns are just forming
in the light, in the twinkle.
Yeah, and then planets, I don't know if some planets do the same.
Yeah. So Mars, when you look at it through like an infrared, it does the same thing in red. And and so that twinkle alone, like that geometric pattern, we're told that we see, and I've seen, Jupiter and its moons through a telescope. I've seen the moon through a telescope. I took astronomy in college and I've observed all these things too. But is it that I'm observing it because I was taught this is how it is? Or is it that I'm really observing it for the first time uninfluenced? And I think like we just need to take a step back and just take a look again and give it a chance. And I did, and to me, there's more evidence that we're on some sort of plane, or like like a golf ball dimple, like you said.
Yeah. So one of the things that my husband brings up during this discussion is satellites, and that they do work on an orbital scale, and that, see, I'm not a physicist, so I'm going to muck this up while I'm trying to explain it, but that there is a band of satellites that kind of goes around the equator, and we're able to have all of this sort of like technology that's based off of these satellites because they are in orbit, and that if you fire something at enough speed at the right angle, it will catch orbit, and our surface has to be curved for that to be possible. So that's also something that prevents me maybe from disentangling from globe theory, which is that we do have this satellite technology. It does work. Like, there's
we
also,
see rockets go up.
We also see satellites crossing the night sky.
Are those satellites?
Well, I mean, from
they're lights.
They are lights. They're moving at extremely fast speed.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you've.
Comets
also.
Yeah. So we have to consider those things, right? They're different.
Right.
That's
and when you see a satellite versus a comet, you can tell the difference between them. They're very different types of objects. Yeah. So it's just the predictability of, I'm going to mispronounce it, like the Leonids, the comets that every like July or August or something like that.
Yes.
We pass through the belt of these comets, or not comets, just like rocks in space.
Yeah.
And they hit our atmosphere. I'm not the physicist. I wish my husband takes care of the physics for our relationship. Okay. But I've watched that phenomenon. I've watched it and thought, gosh, we really are traveling. We are an object traveling through space, and they're like clearly like running into us. And so I don't know. And I think there's validity to what you're saying in the idea that we observe things based on what we're told, especially as children. Our ideas are formed very early on about what the structures of the world around us are. And the fact that those structures are reliable is what keeps us from like insanity. Like if your world was not stable, if it didn't have gravity, if the sun didn't always rise in the east, it would be very difficult to function, I think.
Sure. But having that stability and acknowledging that there's a stability in nature doesn't necessarily prove that what the theory is correct. Meaning, for example, with the Aztecs, and they were masters of time. They knew exactly when the eclipses and shadows would cross over the sun. They used this to influence their religion of sacrifice and sacrificing slaves and all kinds of other peoples. This is why a lot of other tribes in Mexico hated the Aztecs. They use this to their advantage. But just knowing that an object is going to move in front of another, does that conclude that what it is what you think it is? Or do you have to observe it and do measurements and all kinds of stuff like that? I believe that, definitely that whole like meteorite thing, I didn't even think about asking Dave that question, to be honest with you. Yeah. So I totally would ask him that question. But the satellite thing, he does talk to us about it. So he mentions it a little bit.
That's from what I've observed of flat Earth arguments, that seems to be a major sticking point of the argument, is the satellite thing. So I would be interested. I would love to see my husband, who's a physicist, talk to someone like Dave, so that they could kind of like smash their brain pans together and see what they could come up with. But unfortunately, I'm talking from a layman's perspective, so I don't have like,
Same here.
Same here.
I think, but what I value is the question, though. I think being open to the question is not something to frown upon, as long as you're like, not pushy about it. You guys aren't pushy. I've never known you to be pushy, so.
It's fun to think about these random things.
Yeah, it's always good. It's healthy to question things, because we all know science is not settled. That's like the term, science isn't settled. It isn't. And we have to constantly just question everything in this reality that we're in. I mean, if the events from the past 2 years haven't gotten you questioning things now, then I just don't know. Questioning things is healthy.
Yeah. Oh, you're on mute, Cam. I see you talking.
I said one of the points that I can absolutely agree on is the skepticism towards science, because you have people like Neil deGrasse Tyson out there who are pompous jackasses who are trying to make you feel like an idiot and make you feel worthless while giving you some tiny speckles of hope that you're made out of stardust. and then you've got people like Charles Darwin, who one of his primary thrusts was he didn't like God and wanted to postulate a theory that didn't need God to be a part of it. And so
he was also an unrepentant racist. Just, they value Darwin so much, but he was an unrepentant racist, like a gross one. Just thought I'd put that on the table.
Well, and that's been, so it's like one of the questions that comes up a lot when it comes to Christianity in particular is there's this idea that faith and science, which if you properly define science, it's a tool to understand the world around you. It's man's best guess at what's happening. That they always say there's some fight between faith and reason. And I have never seen this battle. I've never been like, oh, well, I can observe this. I can see this experiment works. Oh, no, I can't have faith anymore. In fact, it does the opposite. If you look into Romans 1, it talks about how the creation screams of the glory of God. You can't live on the planet without noticing God.
Yes.
And so I understand that skepticism very deeply. And I also, I have spent some time looking into Genesis 1 and 2 and this writing that's very fascinating writing, because a lot of people want to either make it completely allegorical or they want to make it a science book. And so personally, I would say that if you're talking about how everything was created, I lean towards, I view God as an artist. And so I lean towards God creating a mature earth. And so I don't have any issue with him doing that in a second. If he could create a full grown man in Adam in a second, why couldn't he create a fully mature earth? I don't see the issue here. But one of the things that I think a lot of people don't realize is that Genesis and the Pentateuch as a whole is a narrative. It's a meta narrative that leads to Christ eventually. So this entire book, especially Genesis, it's introducing you to God, and it's also a very oppositional creation account. Because if you look at the other creation accounts of the day, I mean, look in Norse creation accounts, for example. That's one I happen to know the most about outside of my own creation account, which, Odin's father was a giant who was licked out of an ice block by a cow. And then he had his son, Odin, his father, Odin, and his two brothers killed the giant. And then the Earth's dome was created out of the giant's skull, and the water was created out of the blood. It was a very violent image. Wow. There was a lot of violence, and
Vikings
creation came. Yeah, right. But it's something that happened a lot throughout all different creation stories, especially Semitic ones. Yeah. And so you look into Judaism, Christianity, and you have this creator God who speaks into existence instead of using violence to bring life, instead of using violence to create beauty and wonder. And so when I'm looking at Genesis, even though I think that there are a lot of very solid things to draw out of it in the how, Genesis 1 is about the who. It's about who created this, who did this, who set this into motion, how is he spoke it. Yes, I believe that. But it is about the guy who did it. It's not a science book. And so when it comes to flat Earth or other models that kind of reject evolution, I don't really care for evolution that much personally. But when I see these things that kind of reject these different things, I'm hearkened back to the idea that when we read the Bible, we have to read it with a certain context. We have to know who it was written to, why it was written, and what they would understand. And so speaking about the who to a people who didn't understand any science, and so they thought it was a firmament, they thought it had pillars, they thought it had all of these things, is not in it's not in friction with the reality, because it's not about the how. It's about the who and the what. And so when it comes to flat Earth, the reason I don't put too much thought and space into it is because, first, the things that you're talking about, the significance of humanity, the significance of God and who he is and what he did and what we mean to him and what our job is as humans, I'm there, man. I'm with you. So I don't need these other things to make it kind of, I'm not saying you do, but I don't need it to be something else physically for me to feel more significant, because I've been told that I'm significant and I trust him. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%.
I love that.
Yeah. And I also see this like flat Earth, globe Earth as just another thing to divide us and take us away from that thought.
And I also think, I've said this to Monica before, is that regardless of what you think about flat Earth, I think that it's been used, the theory itself and people who believe in it, as a means to denigrate people who question other things.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah. So it's really not something that I'm interested in grasping onto myself at this moment, because I have my answers, and I think they're in the first chapter, first chapter of Genesis to the last chapter of Revelation, but I feel like there's a great danger when you are espousing flat Earth that makes you out to be someone who no one else can listen to. And so when it comes to what I'm talking about, what I'm teaching, I'm not really a teacher, but what I'm saying, what I'm sharing, I really feel like the mission that I have is a little bit more important to me, because my mission is Christ and Christ crucified. And I know this got very Christian. I'm sorry, you're welcome, whatever.
I'm okay with that.
But that's my mission, because I I truly believe that we were thoughtfully created and artfully created.
Yeah.
And that it's not just, oh, well, there's some intelligence that created us. It was an emotional intelligence. It was a spiritual intelligence. It was all of these things. And so there's my shtick. But I'm just like, I guess that's why I'm like, I don't understand why it's a big piece of discussion for some people. And that's why I wanted to ask you, because I want to understand. And I know that I'm very stuck in my ways. And I know that I've done a lot of my own study and my thoughts, but I really loved when you were talking about that you were talking about the significance of humanity, because that is something that's often lost. Like I bristle when I hear someone call human beings animals. I bristle. And it's not because we're not made of the same stuff or whatever. It's just most of the time when I'm hearing people say that, it's to demean humanity. Yeah. And I don't have time for that in my life.
I mean, I got to be honest. I have cognitive dissonance right now, a difficulty. And Legs, you were saying, I think it's funny calling you Legs. Legs was saying that you come from a scientific background and you had difficulty sort of disentangling yourself from these ideas. Can you speak a little more to that and what sort of pushed you through, or what got you, past the because I feel like painful cognitive dissonance in this moment listening to this, because I come from a scientific background. I was a biology major. I'm married to a physicist. It's very, very, science has been very important to me, but I agree with what you guys are saying. I do think it denigrates the human being. I think that there is even agenda in the denigration of the human being here. So could you speak to me or to people like me on that level of, I'm willing to listen to you, but I'm not sure how to get into that water.
Yeah. So, oh man, how do I word this? I guess what launched me into questioning science and the indoctrination that I received in public school and college was my first mushroom trip. It opened my eyes to a world that we can't see just sober, I guess.
Right.
It opened my eyes to that there's energy all around us. There is a God, or source, whatever you want to call it, but God. That little push started me on this quest to just question science and what's being told to us in school. I'm not saying everyone go take mushrooms. If you really want to, go for it. But
it's a very enjoyable experience.
Yeah, I use it more as like a therapeutic experience, not so much like fun. It is fun, but it's good therapy. But yeah, it's really hard. Just what we receive in school, what we go through in public school, it's just so ingrained in us. This is how it is. I remember getting a textbook first day of school, being so excited to flip through it, being like, this is it. These are the facts,
Right.
And that's what we're told. I'm like, this textbook, this is the history. This is how science goes. Follow exactly what's in the book, I guess. But so just going through that my whole life and having to break that was very difficult, but mushrooms definitely got me there. So maybe it takes some type of just mind-altering experience or life and death experience to change your perspective.
I know that people have, if you're not interested in taking psychedelics or risking your life to the point where you have a spiritual experience, people use fasting for that kind of thing as well.
Yes.
So there are ways to attain these experiences without using drugs, which I know some people are just like steadfastly against. But the Vikings used to call taking mushrooms walking with the gods. It was the fruit that the gods gave us so that we could see the world as it really was. Exactly. And in Native American cultures, they used peyote, they call it medicine, very much the same purpose, to connect you to the gods. And so because of the sort of, I would almost say, a Puritan strain in our culture, we've gotten away from the idea that we can have spiritual experiences through the use of these substances. And I'm not telling your kids to go do drugs or anything like that. You know, be a fully sound mind adult in a safe atmosphere. But my experience with mushrooms, although I was doing them recreationally, I was at a reggae festival. And when I did mushrooms, I remember having an incredibly cathartic, incredibly what I can only term as spiritual experience, where I was laying on the ground, digging my fingers down into the earth. And I remember somebody asked me, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I am communing with my mother." And I was just like, "What do you mean? What am I doing? Like, isn't this completely normal that I should be digging my fingers down into the earth and communing with my mother?" Like, so yeah, I think that's interesting that you brought that up, because it does change your perspective. You don't walk away from a psychedelic experience the same person that you were before when you went in.
100%.
I would imagine that's hard to happen that way. Go ahead.
And I was just going to say, I do blame the Puritans for an awful lot. I think that really within the last 100, 200 years, I don't know how long ago Darwin was, 200, 300 years ago. 200?
1860-ish is when he was doing his work.
It was that close. Oh, okay. Yeah. So like $1.50.
It's a recent theory.
But what's you mix the secularization of science, which previous to the secularization of science, it was a very Christian thing. You know, like they act like the church was stamping down science in history, but scientists came out of the church. That, like, I mean, even there wasn't even in the Muslim world, there was I forget what they call it, the Islamic Golden Age. There was science and math that was coming out of that.
When Europe was in the Dark Ages, it was the Muslims who were tending the light of science and knowledge all through that era. And the Vatican now has one of the most advanced astrophysics departments on the planet, is at the Vatican. So when people are like, "Oh, religious people, they don't believe in science," I'm like, "What are you talking about? Churchmen were the scientists." Sorry, go ahead. That's a bugaboo of mine, but yeah.
Between so when it comes to Christianity and science, which we're going to have a nuclear scientist, a doctor of nuclear science on the show in November.
Nice.
Who's a Christian, so that'll be fascinating.
Oh, that's interesting.
But the secularization of science, and when you mix that with the Puritans and the cessationism of a lot of Christian denominations, you know, people who don't believe God moves anymore, you are led to this place where you would have to at some point use mushrooms. I never had to, because I believe God's real and active, and I talk to him a lot. You know, I've spent a lot of time trying my best to reach out to him, you know, meditating by reading scripture, all of this. And so I think they did studies. I can't cite them, but they did a study on people's use of mushrooms and their experience versus people who had been in like biblical meditation and in Christian ecstatic experiences. And the brain was doing the same thing, but it was but when I see that, I go, well, one of these, I would say, is coming straight from the source, and it's not opening up doors to other things, if that makes sense. So I mean, I get a little worried about the mushrooms and these things, just because like I've got to very much focus because I don't want the elves to chop down my door and murder me.
Yeah, no, I get you. I think intention plays a big part in going through your spiritual journey. If you choose to take mushrooms, intention is everything. You know, if you go in with some negative attitude and trying to invite evil in, then yeah, it'll find you. But that's so interesting that the brain was doing the same thing, reading the Bible, meditating versus taking mushrooms. And I think that's just a sign of both those methods allow you to connect to God.
Yeah.
Everyone.
No, I was just saying, the only thing that I would say is I think that if you can get into that place where you're seeking God and doing it that way and using fasting and prayer and stuff like that, I heavily recommend doing that over the others, simply because if you believe that there are spiritual beings out there that are dark and deceptive,
Mhm.
you, regardless of your experience, whether you feel it's good or not, it might not be. It could
Right.
be deceptive. So it's just like, that's why I'm like, I'll be careful here. That worries me because we'll talk about it with our friend Ryan, who's been in the comments, and Cody Cook. Middle of next month, we're going to be talking about the sons of God and the interdimensional beings and that
Nice.
sort of thing. I'm very excited about that.
Nice.
Nice.
Because all of those gods, the Norse gods, they had I'll just say demonic to make it easy, demonic analogs.
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Oh yeah. I believe that 100%. That makes sense.
What is that? Can you clue me in?
How do you mean? I mean that
Well-
the stories came from spiritual beings, and that they talk about the Nephilim, who were the great warriors and great men of old, which are the mixture between the sons of God and the daughters of men. But you've got this class of spiritual beings who put themselves up as gods over these specific regions, and I think that Thor. That's why I have a Marvel tattoo and not a Norse styled Mjolnir tattoo, is because that's an actual worship item to a real spiritual being.
Right.
But I feel like since we're talking about Norse gods, we should bring one in and ask him his opinion. So joining us right now, we have Loki, son of
shit.
Laufey. Is that?
What?
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's right. I'm Loki of Asgard. I'm here with gloriously boring Disney Plus show, but you guys have been talking a lot about my area of expertise, and people are animals, Cam. I'm sorry to say.
Oh my god.
They're wild animals, and they're meant to be tamed, and I'm meant to tame them.
And you can become them.
Do what?
I said, and you can become them.
I can become a wild animal. I don't know what you've been reading.
So what's funny about the Disney show
So
is
many
like
things are happening right now.
look,
I know. See, it was a really serious conversation, so I thought I would come right in here and just really make it refined.
Yeah, but I want to tell you. So I was watching your show, and you
Oh my
came
God.
out
Asleep? Because I fell asleep.
but you kind of came out as bisexual, and people are like, "Hey, Loki's bisexual. They got to do
Look,
the diversity thing." And I'm like, "No. Let me tell you what happened in Norse
I'm gay for
mythology."
myself, Thor. Okay, I'm gay for myself.
But one of the most fascinating stories out of Norse mythology is the
Oh
fact
my god.
that at one point there were some issues going on between the Aesir and a giant, and the horse was helping this guy build a wall, and there was a whole gamble on it, and so Loki had to help get the horse away so the gods didn't
This is too
lose
much.
some of their some of their things and stuff. So Loki became a female horse to draw away this horse.
Yeah, it was a
then
trick.
that horse banged Loki horse, and Loki became a mother.
Well, that's just what a trickster god does. Is sometimes you can be gender fluid, and that's very progressive right now. And I'm offended that you are trying to persecute me because of my gender fluidity. I'm not ashamed of that. Okay. That just means that I chose at that time to identify as something else physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And I gave birth out of my womb.
Yeah.
So you
To an eight-legged
chose
horse.
to have a horse vagina.
Yeah. And I recommend anybody doing that who has the capability to. It's an extraordinary experience.
Wow.
Oh my
And
god.
the wonderful thing is that once you gave birth to that horse, it had 8 legs and was faster than all the other horses.
Yes,
so
it was.
Odin started riding him.
Yes,
Not
my
sexually.
father, my adopted father. Yeah, not sexually. That'd be weird. Okay, let's not get weird.
So you
Are
got
you
like some
non-binary?
stepdad anger going on toward him, is what
Well,
I'm sensing.
He never really loved me like he loved my brother Thor, who was,
Oh.
pretty good looking, strong guy. Looks kind of like like Cam over here a little bit. I'm a little suspicious.
It's painful. It's a painful thing that you had to go through.
Well, I'm adopted, and my parents abandoned me, and then I got adopted by a king who didn't really care about me. And, I'm kind of morally corrupt. Sometimes I'm good, sometimes I'm bad, but you never know if I'm tricking you or not.
Yeah. I like how you're also on the bridge of.
Oh, yeah. I stole this from a bunch of assholes that were on a 5-year mission.
The bridge of the USS Enterprise.
Yeah.
The NCC 17.
Oh my God.
This guy with these pointy ears thought he could take me on, but he's
little bitch.
He's no longer with us. Yeah.
And needless to say, that guy is very paralyzed now.
Yes, he cannot move. You're correct about that.
What I love is that anybody who's going to be listening to this on audio has no idea that Brad just dropped in with a full-on Loki costume, just dropped into the middle of the thread.
What I really would have loved, thank you, about this helmet is for anybody in the reviews on the Amazon thing to say that it's incredibly uncomfortable, and then when you take it off, you have a giant mark in the middle of your forehead for like a day. So I would have appreciated that in these Amazon comments, but I do like it. So I can even make myself disappear like Loki.
Is it adhered with a suction cup in the middle?
No, it should be. They have like a little piece of foam to try and make it be soft, but the foam isn't thick enough, so it's not even touching your head. Just the plastic is touching your head, and the foam is just there.
So it's like basically like every Halloween mask we ever had as kids, where like the plastic would like cut into your face and the rubber band was holding it. Yeah.
What it is. I think you nailed it. Oh my gosh, where did I go? Oh,
magic!
You trickster! Whoa. You trickster!
So crazy lady.
For anyone listening who didn't pick up on it, Brad Binkley from the Propaganda Report has joined us midstream. I decided that should be a surprise.
Pretty awesome.
I like how you said midstream.
I was enjoying y'all's conversation before I came in, by the way. It was fascinating. I'm sorry I came in and mucked it up quite a bit, but I was really enjoying what y'all were talking about.
A lot of pee jokes and muck jokes today.
By the way, I heard what you said about chicken bones, Jessica, and you're absolutely right. There are chicken bones everywhere on the streets of Atlanta.
He knows. He's from here. He knows.
Yeah.
Do you know why that is?
I don't.
It's just the people eating the wings.
Ever since I've been born, it's just been that way. So I guess that's one of those things you never question. And every time I eat chicken, there could be a trash can next to me, but I will go find a city street and dump all the bones out on it.
As you should.
That's the thing is, if you've come from Atlanta, you don't know that there's not just chicken bones everywhere on the ground. So when you go to other cities, it's kind of a surprise that there aren't. And so, yeah.
I started taking chicken bones with me to fill the streets of other cities too. It just doesn't feel right.
Taking a little bit of home with you. That's nice. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So Loki, is the Earth flat?
Well, the Earth flat conversation that you guys were having, it's a spherical shape, but you can be molded a little bit by stronger beings. Right now, it is not flat. However, as you were saying, Cam, they do use that narrative to demonize people. And an example of that right now is Kyrie Irving, who is an NBA basketball player. He's one of the best in the NBA. And he has caused some controversy over his vaccination status. He's likely not vaccinated, but he won't give his status. And in the past, he's gotten some heat for talking about conspiracies. And one of the conspiracies that they initially started demonizing him with, like a couple of years ago, was a flat Earth conspiracy, where he questioned, I don't know what the Earth is. Maybe it's flat. And so that became kind of the point of he's a crazy person. And now the articles you read about him, it's like Kyrie Irving, the conspiracy theorist who has liked all this blood-sucking babies and flat Earth theories on Facebook, isn't vaccinated. That's just how they present him now.
Well, recently, I've been spending a lot of time over the last year trying to delineate between vaccine hesitant and anti-vaxxer, because there is a distinction between the two of them. But I said, I'm going to stop doing that because your rights don't change simply because you're someone that's easy to make fun of. And so I think that applies to everything with what we're talking about here, including flat Earth. Like, you have the mind is a garden. You are free to wander it, and you are free to explore even wrong or bad ideas. That's your privilege that you're allowed to do. And there is like social pressure to rob you of that. And frankly, every advancement and invention that takes us outside of what is the status quo comes from people who are willing to be just a little bit mad, which is kind of the theme of the show. So
yeah, no, that's a fantastic point. Is if science was always settled, then we'd never go anywhere, and we would always be where we started. So the science isn't settled. It's they flip the scientific process on its head, where it's like, no, you just trust the scientists. Just they'll come to the conclusion, and then you just trust it. And the idea of questioning it and science just being a working theory, scaffolding that is you're constantly trying to disprove what you already know to learn more and to improve. And that right now is like you're an evil person if you have that philosophy.
And also you're evil if you don't want to enrich big pharma, which I think is an interesting position for the left to take. But what do I know?
Isn't that crazy how the people who 10 years ago are they're anti-corporate, anti-big business, and are now just full-fledged pro-big business. Yes, ESG standards. We want this company standing up for our social value. No, they're not. They're only doing what they need to do on its face so they can get money from Klaus Schwab and all the Great Reset people, and they don't really care. Like it's been revealed by some of the executives of those companies where they're caught on audio talking about how, well, we're only doing these climate change initiatives because we know that's not really an achievable goal, and just so we can get the Klaus Schwab Great Reset money, and they're just full of it. Okay, they're completely full of it.
Yeah,
Mandy,
100%.
Preach, Loki.
Did y'all see? Thank you. Did y'all see the video of the basketball player who gave like the most eloquent, perfect response to the question about his vaccine status? That's all that all the NBA media day was instead of them asking about basketball and strategies, and it was just are you vaccinated? You're not. Why aren't you vaccinated? Evil person, devil. And then the other player would come up and they say, hey, your jerk teammate over here isn't vaccinated. He's going to ruin your season. Why don't you fight with him? Don't you hate this guy? I mean, that was all they did the whole time. And then this one guy was totally ready for it. He's been in heat. He's got a lot of heat before because he's he's Christian. He's very religious, and they bash this guy for it. But the guy is he knows his stuff. He's confident, and he is not fazed by all the pressure. I highly recommend watching it. I can find his name. He plays for the Orlando Magic.
The scientism is the new Puritanism. And there is that, strain within people that if you don't adhere to the new state religion, you're a bad person. You need to be removed from society. So like you see that strain, that part of our culture. Like we think America is this like pure freedom culture. It's not. People think that the Puritans came here to escape religious persecution. That is the opposite of the truth. In England, they were not allowed to persecute people. So they came here with dispensation from the king. Get out, go do that crazy shit that you want to do over there in the New World. And so they came here specifically to religiously persecute. And that strain is still living today in our culture. It's just been adhered to by science instead of religion.
Well, and the state, because I mean, if you actually look at progressivism and you trace it back to its origins, Woodrow Wilson, all of them, they actually stem from the Puritans, and they used, especially Woodrow Wilson used the social gospel as a means to start World War I, to move us towards this thing from the very beginning. So Puritanism is baked in to at least American leftism, and it's definitely seeped into the right as well.
I want to ask a roundtable question. I want everybody to give their answer. Do you think the Titanic was legitimately sunk accidentally by an iceberg? And I'll start with you, Legs.
I think that was a huge conspiracy. I think there was an iceberg and they ran right into it. I think they knew it was there. And because apparently the seas that they were traveling in were very treacherous and dangerous. And they knew that going into it. And then you look at the names that were on board. The guys that were not, they didn't want the Fed. They were opposed to the Fed. So I think there was an iceberg and they ran into it on purpose.
Yeah, that's kind of my theory. It's either an iceberg and they ran into it on purpose, or they purposefully punctured the hull somehow with explosive or something. But they knew where they were going. The ships had reported that had previously passed the area that was a dangerous zone. They literally went right into it. They didn't avoid it. And it's either that the captain was a complete moron, which I don't think he was based on his experience, his previous experience. He was very good at being a captain and navigating the seas. I think they took it down on purpose, purposefully to stop the people who wanted to stop the Fed, because those were the richest people in the world at this time. If they were around and the Fed didn't exist, these people would probably, unless they completely ruin the economy, they would probably still be the richest people. And they're gone.
Norse god Loki, your opinion on the Titanic?
I think Ruby was tired of Jack and she was trying to
That wasn't even her name.
It was Rose.
Rose, whatever. Murderer. That's what I call her, is murderer.
She could have made space on that door.
That was, yeah, that door was big enough, and she just let him. Well, I agree with you guys. I think it was a conspiracy. There was too many really rich people who were supposed to be on the ship that weren't. One of them being Alfred Gwynn Vanderbilt, Anderson Cooper's relative. And there was a bunch of people who seem to be really wealthy and kind of, and they're, these really rich people that are parts of these factions. They're like frenemies, kind of. They like pretend they don't work together, but they're just always planning to just stab each other in the back. I feel like a lot of that was
like
going
Loki
on
would.
with Titanic. Yes, of course. Exactly. That's why I have some insight into this Titanic.
And Cam, your opinion? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, go ahead. I'll tell you afterwards.
No, it'll be real quick. I don't fucking know. I'm sorry, Mom.
Jonathan Isaac is the guy's name. If you guys want to watch the video of his answer to the vaccine thing, it's the right way to answer the question. It really is.
Okay.
I have to check it out. I think that was actually, we were going to watch that, and then we had to host an episode before we came on here, and we just missed it. So I'm glad you brought it up, because we're going to look it up right now after the show and watch it.
Yeah. It's also nice to be like 6'10" and 250 pounds, that people are just going to be like, all right, we'll let you slide, big guy. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure he's also putting out videos just pro God.
Totally.
And yeah, he's spitting a lot of truth. So I don't know how they haven't shut him down yet. You have these people in these like power positions, and I think it's awesome that he's using that to spread good words and good faith. But at the same time, I'm like, I hope this isn't trying to cause some divide or whatever. I'm always skeptical of karate stance.
Well, it's interesting that they go after Kyrie Irving and they go after Andrew Wiggins, the guy who's on the Golden State Warriors. But this guy says this, and they just kind of leave him alone. It's almost like they don't want the attention to be on what he said. They want to shift the attention to the ones they can say, look at him. He was all about flat earth theory. He didn't believe in the moon landing or whatever they want to throw at him. But this guy, they're just like, oh, okay, let's just not pay attention to him.
Well, they'll use God when it suits their purposes, though, because they have the mayor of New York talking to a group of people. Cam sent me this video where she says, God wants you all to get vaccinated. I want you to be my apostles. The balls on that woman to say, I want you to be my apostles. It tells you a lot about like how they see themselves and how they see you.
She said, my apostles?
My apostles. That was the part that struck more than saying this is what God wants, because all through the annals of history, every day, somebody is saying this is what God wants, do what God wants. The part that struck me was saying, be my apostles. I want you to be my apostles. And this mega church, they just loved it. They ate that shit up. So, it says a lot about how these people in power sort of view themselves. And it's, if that person claims to be speaking for God, it tells you a lot about who she's actually speaking for. That's all I'm going to say on that.
Andrew Cuomo, right? Because he is responsible for the first female governor of New York, and New York owes a debt to him. He's all about women's empowerment.
He does love them. He does love doing things to them, apparently, too.
The fact that people were surprised that either of the Cuomos weren't just sexually harassing people or around the clock shocked me. I'm like, you look at those guys, you hear them talking 5 seconds, it's like, this guy sexually harasses people on the way to his elevator in the morning, at least 5 or 6 people.
I feel sexually harassed when I hear him talk.
Totally, yeah.
Well, they are Italian.
That's why, right? Yeah.
As an Italian, I can make that joke. So.
I love those videos of them where they're dancing in the club. Have you guys seen those?
No.
Oh my god. Yeah, there's like videos of one of the Cuomos just in a club dancing all weird and with his pierced nipples and you know.
I love that man chose on multiple occasions to wear shirts tight enough so that you could see the barbells
Right.
under his shirt.
No, he wants you to see it, just like
Exactly.
Jeffrey Toobin wants you to see it. It's important that you know what he's doing.
Well, Jeffrey Toobin's actually consulting Chris Cuomo on how he should respond to the sexual assault allegations.
Oh,
You know, that's a joke, but it wouldn't surprise me if it were true, to be honest. So
I would,
yeah.
if I'm CNN, I would do that just to troll people at this point because they have gotten so ridiculous that you can't tell what's parody and what they're actually saying is truth. And their commercials are like, this is an apple, this is a banana. It's so dystopian.
I'm so glad people I know only get the audio for this because there have been so many things today.
That was a beautiful
that was a good one.
Whoever you are, I love you.
Oh, his name says Paul, but it's actually Brandon. So only
The
ever
thing about
it
Paul
was-
is Brandon.
When that Jeffrey Toobin thing went down, people were on Twitter making
didn't go
jokes
down.
that night.
It was the whole time.
Fair. That's fair. So when the Jeffrey Toobin thing went up, people on Twitter were making jokes about how, tomorrow you're going to see articles all about how we should accept masturbation at work as normal. And it's like they took that as advice because the next day there were articles about how masturbating at work was totally normal.
I saw that.
I'm like, what kind of culture are we living in where we just like make these kind of excuses for this people where, tugging it during a Zoom meeting. And now his name is synonymous. Like, how great is it that his name is Toobin?
Right.
Because it's now synonymous with the
like
action.
Like Anthony Weiner.
Right.
It's really,
That's Carlos
I almost said it's
Danger to
nuts.
you.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, that's not the first time he's done that too. For him to do that, I think he probably wanted them to see it. I don't think you can be that dumb to put this. I think he wanted them to see it too. I think he probably does that on a regular basis. I think it's, wait, we need another 5 minutes for Toobin over here to finish up. Then we'll get back in the meeting. And I think somebody was just like tired of it.
They ruined Louis C.K.'s career, and he asked for permission and was granted said permission before he did it. But Jeffrey Toobin just gets to do it to whoever just happens to be on the Zoom call that day, and they will write articles in defense of him. It's a clown world, guys. Complete clown world.
I saw a bit of one of Louis C.K.'s more recent acts, and he was talking about, so if you ask a girl if you can masturbate in front of her, and she says yes, I really think you should follow that up with, are you sure?
Oh my God.
That's solid advice. Not even a joke. It's just really good advice, especially if it's Sarah Silverman, because apparently she lies. So,
did you see? I don't know if you listened to the propaganda report while I was in your space, Binkley, but did you hear that Sarah Silverman not that long ago actually came out talking about how we should split up into at least 2 countries?
I saw
Because
that.
it's not working out.
Yeah.
What? I didn't see that.
What a great thing to hear be said. I mean, I don't trust her or believe her, but hey, it's nice to hear it.
Yeah, it is interesting. Somebody, what did she say? She said something else recently that, I can't remember what it was specifically, but it was out of character for someone like her. I think it had to do with cancel culture or something. But you do see some of these celebrities kind of pause and say something that's like, this is kind of messed up every time. Like Bill Maher lately has been changing his tune a little. I'm a little suspicious of him. Like, I think they kind of allow him to be the line that you can go to and not cross maybe in certain instances. But a lot of the stuff he says is not wrong. And it is interesting to see people kind of flip when they're not so focused on Trump and hating Trump. like unless you're Stephen Colbert, and literally every night I've been covering that vaccine thing that he does, that little thing where he dances with needles and has song. He's been doing that for like 4 months, and I've never seen such a state-run propaganda operation designed as a comedy show, which isn't funny at all. Then Stephen Colbert show. It's unbelievable. I don't know how you can live with yourself, look yourself in the mirror when you just. He's basically CNN with dance numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's unbearable. I can't watch him. I used to be a huge fan of him back in the day when he had his own show. He was funny, but now he's just total 180, all for the program that's being pushed on us today. Same with Jimmy Kimmel too. He's like really gone downhill. All these mouthpieces. It's coming out that these guys are just mouthpieces for the agenda. You know, they're not genuine at all.
They're so bitter too with the way they talk. They're so almost hateful, especially Jimmy Kimmel. And I don't know if you saw Jimmy
Stephen Colbert.
Yeah, Colbert too. It's just they're very much trying to create the apartheid and make it look like they're the good guys. And I don't know if you saw Kimmel interview Hunter Biden, but you should watch it. You should really watch. What I did on one of our shows is I compared Jimmy Kimmel's interview with the My Pillow guy, Mike Lindell, to his interview with Jimmy Kimmel. I did back and forth clips, and it's just like he's just the rudest, most horrible person on the planet to the My Pillow guy, who takes everything in stride and is like, "Let me give you a hug," and he's just like super nice to him. He handles it all well. And then Hunter Biden, he's joking with him about his crack smoking and about maybe that was your laptop, maybe it wasn't. It's really shocking to see that. And what's even more shocking to me is the fact that people can so easily dismiss that level of obvious bias. And while it's not news, it really kind of is, because a lot of people do get their news from those shows.
Did I tell you how much I like your black tank top?
I was waiting for you to comment on that because I almost didn't wear it. And then I was like, oh shit, I got to put on a black tank top for Kate.
So we got 2 tickets to the gun show.
I was going to say, sun's out, guns out.
Backstory for that: when I covered for Monica on the Propaganda Report, the first day we were both wearing black tank tops, and so we joked about that. So anytime you'll see Brad and I on camera together, we're going to be wearing black tank tops.
Yeah,
that's wonderful. Oh my gosh,
we're tank top buddies.
You both are perfect in black tank tops. Just bring out the guns.
Right. It's all CGI. To pump it up.
These aren't real tattoos.
I knew you were lying.
I'm a wimp. I can't handle the needles.
He says that because his mother watches the show now. Don't believe him.
I'm sorry about that F word, Mom.
I love your mom, Cam. She's wonderful. When she was on that episode with you guys,
loved that episode.
Man, that was a great episode.
Yeah, I was crying.
Oh yeah, that was a tearful one. No, a lot of the women from my church ended up watching that show, and I was like, oh God, they watched my show, but they were so supportive.
Oh, that's good.
And it was just not the thing that you are told about the Christian community, is that if you come out and talk about regretting an abortion, that they're going to be supportive. You think that you're going to be like, well, you belong in hell. And that's not at all the attitude. It's literally the opposite. So if one group is telling you how another group is going to react to you based on something, they might have an agenda. Just throwing that out there.
They're trying to demonize Christians on a certain level for sure right now. They're trying to tie Christianity with this whole domestic terror thing that they're pushing, and people who question the election, people who are vaccine hesitant. They're kind of trying to weave all these together into one domestic terror profile to watch for. I've seen a couple articles pop up lately about the dark side of the Christian faith, and why domestic terror and Christianity go hand in hand. This is pretty shocking to me, the types of angles that people are trying to push on that. And I know some of those are going to be really far radicalized people that are just trying to demonize the faith, but it seems to be popping up more lately.
Well, it's like, remember we talked on your show like weeks ago about how they were going to turn the domestic terrorism on everyone, and that's how it was going, the American Taliban, stuff like that. And then
Al-Qaeda.
And when
I
I
like
was
that.
when you were
I
out,
like
it
that.
was when George W. Bush came out and was saying that the
Yeah,
1-6 and the were of the same foul spirit as Al Qaeda and stuff. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm so glad that we have it on record that Brad and I spoke about this.
I know, right? And George Bush said, like, "Let me show you some of my art. Me and Hunter painted together." I mean,
Did
you guys
y'all-
are both artists. Well, I mean, this is ridiculous.
Did y'all see the article that came out that was basically like, are your Republican neighbors plotting to kill you? And it said that if your Republican neighbors are hanging a black flag outside of their house, they're basically plotting to kill you if you're a liberal. And I thought, you know, as much as I see leftists and people from the left projecting what their intentions are on the opposite side, it made me kind of think, oh my God, are the leftists planning to fucking kill us? Because I'm not even conservative, but I know that they would consider me one. So, you know, that was alarming to me because I see a whole lot of projection coming from that side. And
what I thought was funny about those tweets, because one of the guys was like showing the black flag thing and he was like, my neighbor did this and I'm scared. And he's like, before you say it, no, he's not an anarchist. He went from a Trump flag to a Gadsden flag to a black flag. And I'm like, that's the progression towards anarchist. So I don't what point are you making?
Exactly. It's supposed to go that way if you're doing it right.
Meanwhile, they're starting to do multiple anthems at football games and other sports games, and that
like
whatever your anthem is
or something.
Well, what they're doing is they're doing the national anthem, then they're doing the black national anthem.
Mm.
What is
Does that sound like? Is it a
What
banger?
is that?
What's the difference?
is it a banger?
Yeah, it is. Totally. It's hot. But they're doing flags too. They're like raising different flags and stuff, and those are all the symbols are all tools of control. Whether it's even the national anthem. I'm not saying the national anthem is great. I'm not pro that. I'm just saying that the idea that they're starting to present multiple is the promotion of division and fracture and conflict in society.
So straight up, this dude at my church was talking about this, and he said that although it hasn't gone kinetic yet, America is already in a civil war now. So we talk about like a coming civil war, but he was saying there are already two Americas. There's the heartland and then there's the homeland. And like, I hope I'm getting this right, but like the heartland is the people, the coastal people, the city people. And then the homeland is sort of like the rest of us kind of in the middle here. The conservatives, the Christians, the people who just want to be left alone, the people who want to, have raw milk and collect their rainwater. All of these people can be
delicious, by the way.
Right. It really is.
Oh,
yeah,
it's so
it's
much
awesome.
Better.
And those two groups are diametrically opposed. And so you will be lumped in with white supremacy and domestic terrorism if you're a raw milk, collect rainwater type of person, because you are diametrically opposed to the heartland.
Well, they actually said that. Like they actually said that on a CFR panel deconstruction that we they had a discussion, we deconstructed it, but they talked about you have to look out for these survivalists, these people who grow tomatoes, who like natural food, because that is a guise, and that is 2 steps away from being a full-fledged white nationalist. It was just completely shocking that they were characterizing anybody who was being self-sufficient and independent in that way. But you're exactly
I've heard it about holistic medicine, especially. And that gets lumped in with anti-vaxxer gets lumped in with conservative, and then that gets lumped in with white supremacy. So it's like this really easy progression that they've already primed people for. They don't have to do any work any further. If you are opposed to the scientism religion of the heartland in any way, you are XYZ white supremacist domestic terrorist automatically, just because you literally grow herbs.
Right.
Wow. Well,
I think I don't think so I think they're trying to manifest that through the media and social media and the digital world. I think when you're out in the field and you're talking to people, most people are reasonable, even if you have different views. And I think that they're trying to radicalize people and pull them away from the reasonableness and try to make what we see on social media with people just going crazy left and right. They only highlight stories of the most ridiculous things. So there could be 1,000 or there could be 1,000 protests against the mandates that are perfectly respectful and reasonable. And then there could be one person who could very likely be a plant that goes in and headbutts somebody and kicks somebody in the nuts and then spits on them because they're wearing a mask. And then the only story you hear about is crazy anti-masker and anti-vaxxer, knees principal in the nuts. And that's the only one you hear about to create this character like that and to try and make that fear translate into the real world. But from the people I talk to and that I've been around, and I'm around a lot of progressives and liberals because I'm in the theater community, obviously, by the little stupid hat that I'm wearing right now. And they're mostly cool. Now, you get in discussions with people, and sometimes people will kind of go off the chains a little bit. I played a clip of Carrie Mullis to a guy I know, a friend of mine I've known for like 10 years who just loves Fauci. And he started screaming at the recording. I'm like, dude, don't yell at the phone. It's just a recording. And he was like short circuiting about what he
can't hear you.
It was crazy. But still, he still didn't want to fight. He still didn't want to start a war. And I think they're badly trying to create that. So the reality of the digital world is so unlike what the real world is.
So I've witnessed this in person where like I'll have parties where friends will come over, people will gather in groups, and they'll talk to each other at the party where they've come maskless to the party talking about, we wear masks in public and this, that, and the other thing. But here they are at a party. They're gathering at a social gathering. They're not wearing a mask, but they're discussing with the other people at the party about how they're obedient to this social convention. I thought, this is weird. This is really weird because you're here now. You're here with me. Yeah. Like, you haven't seen me in months. You don't know where I've been, so you're saying this thing to each other to signal to each other that you're on the same side, but your behavior is that you're still coming into these social groups. And so there's like a cutoff, like what's the word? Cognitive dissonance, I think, is in play here, where you're behaving one way, but you have to talk about how you are obedient to the social culture. And I couldn't square that. I watched it with an open jaw. I was like, you're literally sitting in a social gathering right now.
Passing a joint,
literally, quite literally passing a joint between each other, talking about, I wear a mask everywhere I go, man. And, absolutely. And passing it to me, and I'm like, okay, cool, I don't.
I got a little COVID, but whatever.
We don't kill it. We don't kill it. It's fine.
May I ask you about that, Brad?
Of course.
That you had the coof?
I did. I had the coof, and I did one of those rapid antibody tests. I didn't love it. It was definitely not fun. It was probably the longest I've ever been under the weather, I would say. At first, I just thought that I had like a fever and the flu, and it didn't seem really any different for the first couple of days until I completely lost my sense of smell and taste. That was the real strange thing. And I gotta tell you, that is really weird. Eating food when you can't smell it or taste it. It's just like all that you have is the texture. And it's
fucked up.
This is weird. And you didn't want to eat. I didn't want to eat because everything was just like chewing on a towel or something like that. It was strange. I still don't have my sense of smell all the way back. Every now and then I'll catch something. I'll go, oh my gosh, I can smell the orange juice, or I can smell whatever. And so it's still coming back. My sense of taste has come back. And other than that, I feel fine. But it was just about a fever for like a week for me. And it just didn't feel good. And I just wanted to curl up. And every time I got up, I was a little woozy. But and I know people have it affects people differently. I tried to get ivermectin, and I tried the stuff that Joe Rogan did. I was like, all right, I'm just going to do what Joe Rogan does. Cause although he works out all the freaking time too.
Would they let you have it?
Well, I got the prescription through the doctors, the frontline doctors, and the places I tried to fill it, I was unable to fill it because they would just tell me that they're out of it or they don't have it. And I don't think they were telling the truth.
Lying-ass bastards.
Yeah. And then online, you can get online for like $1 million. Like, look at you, ivermectin tomorrow for $10 million. I'm like, I think you're gouging me a little bit. So.
Brad, was there anything you did different in your life before you got sick in terms of maybe not getting enough sleep, change in diet?
Well, I'm not always, my sleep habits aren't the best. I was at a football game where there were people who were. I honestly thought I was going to get it because I was in a crowd where I noticed a bunch of people were coughing and stuff, and I touched that, and I said it to myself. I think I'm going to get sick because I have a little OCD, so I've always kind of been conscious of that type of thing, and that's actually the first time I've been sick since probably when I was in high school. It's been a long time I've been sick, and I saw it coming because I was around a very germy area, and I think there were sick people there. But
did you say Germy or German? Were these crowds?
German. A lot of German people were around, and they were coughing, and
that'll do it.
Yeah.
Speaking, I mean, their entire language is essentially a cough. A series of coughs.
They were spitting all over me. It was disgusting.
Yeah, the reason I asked that because I wanted to get your take on terrain theory, and if you think that's a thing. I guess roundtable. What do you guys think about terrain theory or
versus germ theory?
Can you give us a little bit of background because I'm not familiar?
So terrain theory, in a nutshell, your environmental factors make you sick. Not necessarily a virus. Like I asked them, change in diet, lack of sleep. Those things can definitely affect
nutrition.
Your nutrition. They can affect how you feel, and you can get sick.
The germ theory would be like Louis Pasteur, what he said, where little microscopic organisms are the thing that make you sick. And the modern version of it is that the only thing that allegedly can help you is vaccines, but there's also medications that can help you and things like that. So it's a difference of what makes you sick. Is it the things around you? Is it your environment? If you're the goldfish, is it your bowl, or is it something else that's making you sick, like a disease that's been implanted in the water, or a virus or something? So it's between the two.
I always thought I'll start off, I guess, but I always thought it was kind of bullshit that when it got cold, there were more germs around. And I always got some kind of little cold, some kind of sickness right when the weather hits. Now, I also think that there are things that affect you. Like, I have allergies from like pollen. I have allergies from ragweed. So I know that there are like environmental factors that can completely lay you out flat that just don't even affect anyone else. And I will be coughing, sneezing, the whole works when the ragweed comes in. And that's not going to affect my husband. You know what I'm saying? So like, I don't know. I just always, the idea that everything's like, there are more germs when it's cold did not make any sense to me, because the way that all these like bacteria and things like that work, they're like warm environments make them grow, right? So wouldn't the cold air outside during the winter mean that it would be less transmissible? I always thought that was sort of weird. And now I'm not, the expert here. I was a biology major, but I did not graduate. So there is that thing to add. I got washed out by organic chemistry too. So that might be playing into my thought process here. But yeah, I always thought it was a little kind of bullshitty that somehow there were more germs around when it was cold. I don't know.
What about you, Cam?
I don't know, man. I've never looked into that. I guess that it would perhaps make sense with speaking directly to the cold aspect, in just that people typically bundle and are closer to each other for warmth during that time. But I don't know. I have no idea.
What about you, Loki?
Oh, you're muted, Ben.
You're muted.
Oh, yeah.
Mute.
Sorry, I was playing a trick on myself there. Monica is a fantastic. Monica has talked about this a good bit. I'm not as familiar with the theory. The environmental factors, I absolutely believe affect everything. Getting good sleep, and as I've gotten older, I've realized I'm like, I can't just be like a rock star. I gotta start sleeping more. I gotta eat better, and not go out as much. And sugar, for instance. I love sugar. I love candy,
poison.
But now I'm like, I get it out of the house. I don't want to see it.
You shouldn't.
Totally.
You shouldn't.
If it's around me, I'll eat it. So I try to just keep it as far away from me as possible, because I know I'm not going to feel good if I eat a bunch of sugar. So I definitely think I love the way that you you described that. Is it the bowl, the environment inside the bowl, or are people putting shit in there to kind of poison it? I think that definitely the environment. And as for germ theory, I don't know. I feel like I feel like sick people can get other people sick. If not always, I mean, it's not always going to get other people sick, but I feel like if perhaps you've been in an environment where you have let your guard down, maybe combined with germs being passed around, that you're going to be more vulnerable to it. But I don't know.
Well, and if you think about health as a whole, I mean, most of what our healthcare isn't preventative. It's it's not preventative. And so you see, like, most of the issues that I deal with, which there aren't a whole lot, but all of them deal almost directly with how I treat my body, which is just filling it with Swiss cake rolls. And every Wednesday night I have this drink that is just not anything bad, Mama
Harless, I'm so
like
sorry.
Sweet tea.
It's sweet tea.
Looks like tea to me.
But yeah, like, most of the things that people deal with have to do with their environment and how they deal with themselves and their gut biome and all of that. And so, like, I think it's probably a mixture. I've gotten sick from people who I've only been in contact with at a place that I'm not in the environment all the time. So, like, people come into my environment and make me sick, and I'm like, well, it's not my environment then. So I think it's probably both.
I did get H1N1 in 2014.
Oh,
I got it. Yeah, it was
Did you
the
get
worst.
The vaccine?
No, it was the worst thing I've ever been through, by the way. And I worked in a restaurant at the time. So I'm pretty sure that I had all kinds of exposure to everyone and touching the things that they were using with their mouth and all that kind of stuff. Like, I definitely got it from work.
I think it was just 4G towers at that point that were doing it.
Yeah.
But now we have 5G, and it's much worse.
And there was
Super
nothing
H1.
about that changed from before I got sick to when I got sick. It was literally just that H1N1 came through, and I happened to get it really bad. And H1N1, it kills people. I was 25ish, 26ish. I'm not good with math, but I was in my mid 20s. I was healthy. I eat a lot of vegetables. I take vitamins, drink water. Like, I walked to work 2 miles every day, so I got exercise. Like, I was doing everything right, and that shit laid me out flat. I lost 15 pounds.
Oh, wow.
I was in bed for 8 days. I didn't have health insurance, so I couldn't really do anything about it, but kind of wait it out.
Like a vacation.
Well, yeah, I'm lucky I didn't get fired. I actually had, like, a really great boss who, knew that I was as sick as I was and decided not to let me go for my job, even though I couldn't come to work for 2 weeks. So in the restaurant industry, that's not something that's usually a guarantee. So yeah, I really, Brad, wherever you are out there, not you, the gay Brad who used to employ me.
Gay Brad. Sorry, is this
gay
Yeah,
Brad
this is
who
not
used
gay
to
Brad.
employ me? Yeah, I appreciate you for not firing
Not
me
gay Brad.
when I had
I am not gay, Brad.
No, he's gay Brad. You're not gay Brad.
Thank you. Yes. That's
Yeah.
interesting. So I was at Relapse for a long time, Relapse Theater. Jessica has been there quite a bit. One of her good friends was a performer. I used to perform with her. And when I was younger, I was pretty severe OCD. My hands, especially in the winter, were cracked and bleeding quite often because of how often that I washed them. And I used to joke all the time that I could count, I always count my steps, so I can tell you exactly how many steps it is from here till the next time I disappoint my parents. And so I was like, I was a germ guy, and Relapse actually broke me of that because it was so dirty all the time. And Bob was like, come here, hug. We don't care. We'll bask in the germs. You'll be fine. Your immune system will be strong. I used to joke about that, but I think there's something to that. I know George Carlin used to joke about that too. It got to the point where it's just like, it's dirty. There's so many people around all the time, and theater is touchy feely that it really, it broke me from being such a germophobic after about probably a year or so. And the whole time that I was there, I never got sick. I know that that's a single instance. It doesn't prove anything. But I do think it is. I didn't even know that terrain theory existed until I heard Monica bring it up during one of our shows, and it hadn't dawned on me. I was like, oh my gosh, there are other theories about this. I'd never even considered that. Kind of like people with evolution and all. It's like, oh my gosh, that theory hasn't always been around. Wow, the way they tell us about it seems like
pretty new. It's a pretty new theory, and it was invented by an unrepentant racist as part of his bid to explain why certain groups of people just weren't quite as human as other groups of people. And that's something
because
that sort of gets lost.
No.
Right.
No. Yeah.
So, and I think it's important to know that it's something that kind of gets glossed over. And you guys should look at the notes from the Copley Medal. He won the Copley Medal in 1860. And there were some scientists who were kind of stepping up and being like, yeah, this theory doesn't meet the rigor of science. And we should not award science medals to people whose theories do not meet the rigors of science. And then furthermore, I have a bit of a pet peeve about Darwin. Furthermore, Marx and Engels exchanged letters with him, and they loved his theories and thought that his theories really proved their personally racist theories.
Yep.
So yeah, if you guys are Darwin fans, you should definitely look into some of the letters that got exchanged by some of the worst people who ever existed.
Yeah.
But,
Well, so
I love reading Marx's material on Black Lives Matter. He's got a whole expose.
oh yeah, quite
what I
the
love
progressive that guy.
What I love is the idea that at some point Charles Darwin was presenting his theory, and he's like, man evolved from apes. And they're like, how do you know this? And he goes, well, did you see the birds with the beaks?
Yeah.
They were different beaks. And so obviously.
Yeah.
I love that Darwin voice
that
there.
simple.
Great. Yeah.
He sounds exactly like that.
It evolved and it just went forward.
The birds. You saw the birds with the beaks.
That's like science today. Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Really, it is. Fauci,
And
man.
when it's a religion and you have faith in it, you don't need it to make sense. And unfortunately, that's where we're at. It's scientism. It's not science.
Oh yeah.
And it is the way that people react. They react to it with faith. And you guys were talking about religion earlier, and it was very fascinating. I find that subject interesting. Cam, you know far more about the Bible than I do. I'm sure all of you know far more about the Bible than I do. But I love stories. I love the stories in the Bible. I just think they're so interesting, and they come from something, So anything that pops into our imagination, whether we realize it or not, it is going to be a combination of things that that has been pressed upon us through the world that we've lived in. So while some stuff seems out there, and I know some people have a literal interpretation, some people see Bible symbols and representations of exaggerated, they came from something. The stuff that is written, it was not just purely fabricated out of people's imaginations. It was a product of something that was witnessed and experienced.
Yeah.
And trying to understand all that is now I don't know what y'all's beliefs are, so I don't want to offend, but I find that atheism personally is the most irrational theory, and oftentimes, not everybody, but it's kind of a strong religious faith in atheism, in that if you question atheism, that you're just kind of dumb, and it's just like it just seems, it's something kicked everything off. Something put everything into motion. What that you call it the Big Bang? Who kicked off the Big Bang? What kicked off the Big Bang? I don't know. I don't think that. And it can sound like a cop-out, but I think it is really difficult for us to comprehend and to wrap our brains around how everything was created and what it is. And I think about it this way, and it's probably kind of a dumb way to think about it, but like a fish is swimming around the water, or in the ocean, there's organisms in the deep recesses of the ocean or whatever. They are completely unaware of this different environment that we live in. It's totally foreign to them. They do not know that it exists, and they do not understand it. Can you imagine the first time a fish gets caught? They're swimming around in the only environment they've ever known. The only sky they've ever seen is wavy and wet. And then all of a sudden, they're yanked out of it into this completely different atmosphere that would probably be fascinating to them if they didn't have a hook in their eye. And it's just like crazy. And then, you know, they're thrown back into the water to swim in circles the rest of their life because they're probably mentally decapitated at that point. And tell people that they got abducted by aliens. Everybody tells that guy, it's crazy Frank over there.
The other fish don't believe them. Yeah.
Right. No, exactly. And I'm not saying like, but my point is that like, they can't understand that. And I just think it's very difficult for us to, I don't know if we have the capacity to understand what the other dimensions might have created or a God that created us. I don't know. It's all, I find the subject fascinating. I'm not as well learned on it as I would like to be, but I do love listening to people who talk about it.
Yeah. I think that's actually not a bad way to put it at all, because I would say that, you know, I'm Christian, so I'm obviously going to go to the Bible, but you know, that is a revelation. It was God revealing himself to humans and them doing their darndest to explicitly state it and share it with others. So, I mean, it's not a bad analogy at all. No analogy is perfect, but I mean, that's not bad. It isn't. But I did see a TikTok the other day, and a guy said, you know what really I'm on TikTok because I'm hip. But a guy said, one thing that will always bother me is the fact that a shark will never know that a moose exists. And then I kept scrolling.
That's profound.
And I kept scrolling. And this person stitched that TikTok and goes, actually, in this specific part of the world, moose swim through the water, and there are also bull sharks in that water. So there are certain sharks that have eaten moose. And I was just like, worldview shattered. Brand new worldview gone.
Crazy.
Oh my God.
That's so interesting. I find the ocean really interesting. And I love stuff like that. So they say that we've only explored 5% of the ocean. I don't know who they are, and I don't know how they could possibly know that. If they've only seen 5%, how do you know what percentage it is? That doesn't make any sense. But I do believe that we haven't explored a large part of the ocean. And just the things that we have pictures of that are in the ocean, they're already crazy and they already look like aliens. I can't imagine what is actually in the parts of the ocean that we have not seen. There's organisms that can live forever that are, you know, in the ocean. They're found in Antarctica, another very interesting place, Antarctica. It's just, there's so much we don't know about where we are right now, just the planet that we live on.
I used to be a diehard atheist in the 2010s to 2015 region.
Is that an atheist that just really likes John McClane?
Yeah.
From Die Hard? Oh, okay, yeah. No, I really like Die Hard.
Oh my God.
Like, no, but okay, but the reason I brought that up is because I came to believe in Christianity. I believed in Christianity before I believed in God. I started studying history, and I realized that militarily, Christianity should not have happened. Rome should not have been Christianized. The Vikings should not have been Christianized. Militarily, they should have cut a swath through medieval Europe. Oh shit, like my chair just sank on me. And yet, everywhere that it touched, it spread like wildfire. It spread through the Vikings. The Vikings were Christianized. And so I was looking at this and saying, okay, there is a power to this philosophy. There is something going on here. And the belief in God came after. And that part, I don't have that 100% of the time. It hits me like a bolt out of the blue. And I just think for an astonishing second, there really is a God. And it freaks me out most of the time. And I don't feel it 100% of the time. But the reason I believe in God, and I say that I believe in God, is because I've had enough of those experiences that I hold on to them in the moments where I don't. Where if I'm praying, it feels cold. And I don't have that sort of like, what did you call it? Ecstasy connection? Yeah, where you're like ecstatic connection. I don't always feel that. But I've had enough of it's almost like where lightning gets it, like the particles in the cloud get attuned with the particles on the earth, and it causes a discharge just in the right moment. And you have to be in the right space, and every so occasionally you can get illumined. And I've had enough of those
Jesus.
that in the moments where I'm feeling cold about it, I can hold on to that and say, okay, I've felt that before though. And so I know it's there. And for me, the philosophy of Christianity came first. And I said, okay, I want to be part of this. This has clearly been good for the world. This has clearly caused people to live up to their better natures. And so I wanted to be involved with that. And then the belief in God came after. And like I said, it only hits me every so occasionally. It'll be random. I'll be in the garden. I'll be working in the garden. Butterfly will go by. And I'll feel that discharge of like, holy shit, God's real.
Hell
And it's
That's a really
Have
interesting
y'all-
way to think about that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Have y'all watched The Chosen yet?
No, my mom keeps telling me to watch it.
Okay,
What
so
is
I
it?
just finished
Is that a
it.
show?
It is.
Yes.
It's a show. Ironically enough, it's directed by Dallas Jenkins, who is the son of Jerry B. Jenkins, who wrote Left Behind with Tim LaHaye.
Oh, okay.
But it's
Okay.
really good, so don't let that dissuade you.
don't let Left Behind in any way be a reflection of this
That's the
at all.
Kirk Cameron movies.
Yeah.
Oh
But
God.
I watched through the first 2 seasons. It's free. They have an app. You just search for The Chosen in your app store, and you can
Okay.
cast it or watch it or whatever. And it's easily the best depiction of Jesus and the apostles that I've ever seen.
Huh.
And it's
Wow.
and there are different parts in it that just absolutely punch you in the stomach. Like there were certain things that I realized watching it that I hadn't thought of because I'd read it linearly in the book that many times, and it showed it to me in a new way. So if you haven't watched it yet, it's free. Watch it. There are 16 episodes now, and it's well worth
2
the watch.
seasons, two complete seasons. And the thing about The Chosen also is that it's crowdfunded. Netflix, Prime, none of these show makers would touch it. And so it's been completely funded by people who watch the show. There's 7 seasons planned, and they're funded through season 5. So you can go on an app on your phone. It's called Angel Studios, and you can cast to your TV from the Angel Studios app. And
you can also do it
there's
straight from the Chosen app.
or the Chosen app as well. And you can watch it for free. There is sort of like a pay it forward aspect to it. So if you do, you're going to love it. So I know you'll love it. But if you love it, pay for an episode for someone else to watch it. And oftentimes when you have an episode paid for you, you'll get to see a little blurb from that person. And there's a lot of stories that have been imparted to me through that, where a person has said, this episode changed my perspective. I didn't think of it this way. And so, this is like someone out there is handing this off to you and saying, hey, this was meaningful to me. I want you to have it too. And I think that's so much more powerful than just something that Netflix decided to fund, because Netflix, they'll throw money at the wall and just see what sticks.
Yeah.
Whereas
Edward
this
Bernays' nephew, the king of propaganda, is the guy who started and was the CEO of Netflix. Totally. That's such an interesting. It's such an interesting thing, the pay it forward idea of that. I really like that. While it still is dispersed, there's kind of the wild west of social media and these online platforms. There is the ability to reach people using mechanisms like that and platforms like that. I think that's really cool.
I think so too. And I especially like, after I finish an episode, it'll tell you, hey, John Q. Smith from Iowa paid for this for you. And, he leaves a little message saying, this really affected me. I hope it affects you too. And there's like a human connection to it that I really appreciate.
I like
Oh,
that.
that's really cool.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to give that a chance. I'm always, I wouldn't consider myself a Christian. I'm a spiritual person. I believe in God. I know God exists, and
We'll get you there, buddy.
Hey, I read the Bible. I think the Bible is an important book that everybody should read. I think that, to me, the lessons that impart in the Gospels with Jesus, the way he acts, that to me is pure Christianity. It's just, Cam, I have not had the wonderful ecstatic experiences that you have had in a church. I've had completely opposite experiences. And
What kind of church did you go to?
I was Mormon. I was born Mormon.
Okay.
And then after, the only other Christian faith I had is I went to like an Episcopalian church because I wanted to see what it was like outside of the Mormon church. and then Catholic school. And I went to mass like every day.
And Calvary
So like
Chapel.
all of the churches I didn't go to.
Exactly.
And I grew up in Calvary Chapel was the
Okay.
Christian church I went to.
Okay.
And Left Behind was like huge when I was a kid, and
Yeah.
it just terrified me so much.
Yeah, it's
So,
scary.
Yeah.
I read every one of those books.
Yeah, I
I
did
think I
too.
read the first one. I don't think I read any more after that. They scared me. I was like, no, I'm good.
But yeah,
What is the Mormon belief?
Oh, the Mormon belief? Well, it's hard to like. I don't want to like
Very, very
besmirch-
different.
I don't want to besmirch Mormons, but they have a different gospel, so to speak. They use the Bible, but not really. Most of the time when I was in
But-
church, it was always Book of Mormon. Book of Mormon was written by
Pearl of
Joseph
Great
Smith.
Price.
Yeah, Pearl of Great Price, the Doctrine of Covenants, I believe. And it's a New Testament that's supposed to be in addition to the Gospels. I'm a little weary of the history of where that book came from and how it was written because I know the story behind it. I don't believe it. So
Did
that's
you see
just
the South Park episode?
I did, and it was brilliant because that's exactly how it happened. And the funny thing is, the church doesn't hide any of this stuff. If you're a Mormon, you can go to the temple in Salt Lake. You can go to the archive. It's not like the Vatican where it's sealed up. They will show you all the information they have. This information is out there, and people still flock to the church. And part of me is like, you know what? It's all good because every Mormon I've met has been the nicest person in the world.
See, they did another South Park episode where a Mormon kid came to town and all the kids were having a really hard time accepting it. But at the end of the episode, the kid was like, "You've spent so much time focused on what I believe that, you didn't realize that I was just trying to be your friend."
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a great message too, because it's like at the end of the day, does it really matter if he believes that he gets a planet when he dies? And, I don't know what Mormons believe. I'm sorry.
I absolutely think that's right. I think that the way people behave and the way they treat people, I think that matters. And
yeah,
most Christians and I have met a few Mormons. I have not met Mitt Romney yet. Maybe one day, but have been just very kind and good people. And I ultimately, I don't know what happens after we die. I have what I would like to believe. I would like to believe we're reunited with our loved ones and friends and our dogs and cats. But I have a hard time believing that it's about picking the right one, that if you live a good life and you're a kind person and you happen to choose the wrong one, that you're going to be damned to a hell or whatever for eternity. And I could be wrong, but I just have a hard time believing that. I think it's about the morals and living your best life and attempting to better yourself, because we all struggle, we all struggle at times. And
in October, we're actually talking to a guy who wrote a book called Rethinking Hell. And he's got a sort of different perspective on this that I think is actually a lot more biblical from what I've been learning. We're excited about that.
Yeah. That's cool.
Because in a nutshell, not to like give too much and I'm sure the episode will be way more detailed than this, but it's like evil is what goes to hell. There's nothing about God or Jesus that makes any sense to me, that he would burn your neighbors in a hellfire pit for eternity because, you picked the wrong one.
Yeah.
Like that just doesn't compute for me.
Same here. I have a hard time believing that there is a hell. Some people would argue that where we're at right now is hell. Yeah. This realm we're in or whatever. But God to send people to the fiery pit, like you said, for the rest of eternity, just for, I don't know.
Yeah.
Doing something wrong. It doesn't seem right.
I think that, and I'm not the best example of knowing Christian theology, but forgiveness is a huge part of it. Forgiveness would be a quality of God. Yeah. And so why would he want to send you to that unless you were pure evil? To me, that makes sense. Pure evil should go to hell. That's apparently they enjoy it there. But forgiveness is so big that I think if you choose the wrong religion or you choose the wrong, faith, God's going to forgive you if your heart was pure and all you tried to do here was spread love, because that's what he does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. None of that sounds like Jesus to me,
Yeah, and I think that one of the big points that will be made by Chris when we talk to him is going to be the fact that eternal life is the gift. So the soul itself, it's actually a Greek idea that the soul is inherently immortal, not a Christian or Jewish idea, but that it kind of grew into the church because of location and philosophy at that point. And that when, Jesus says, the gift of God is eternal life, that it is a gift you have to accept, a gift that so you choose either to continue on with God or you cease to exist. I don't know how that ceasing of existing will work, but I absolutely do believe you have a choice, and then it's all based on free will.
That's true.
I love this subject. It's so fascinating.
I do too.
So I take it you guys don't believe in reincarnation.
No, well, I do.
I
I
don't.
think you asked me this before. I do, insofar as the fact that I will be back in my body at
the end.
Yeah,
That's right. That's right. Okay.
I will be resurrected into my body.
Yeah.
It'll just be
I do think
perfect,
that
and I'll have abs. It'll be nice.
There are some weird and interesting stories where children will tell their parents about memories that they have that don't belong to them. A lot of times, or at least some of the times, those memories can be connected to people who died or had tragic deaths. So I don't know exactly how like essences and energies work fully. I don't think we can know that, but I think that there's something about traumatic death that leaves an imprint,
For sure.
and that children are very sensitive to, like, I talked at the very beginning of the episode, we talked about the veil, and that during certain points of the year, the veil between the physical world and the spiritual world is a little bit thinner. And that children, because they've just emerged from the ether, they're more sensitive to these things. So I don't necessarily know it's that they're reincarnated, they're the reincarnation of this person's spirit, but maybe that there's something about that energy, that traumatic death, that kind of got like imprinted into the whatever the energy essence thing is. And then I heard a fascinating thing from Jordan Peterson today. He was talking about how blind people still perceive facial expressions. And I didn't entirely understand what he was saying, but even though you're blind, you still have eyes. Those eyes are still taking in input from the world around you. And so there are perceivables that happen that go beyond just what you see. And so our bodies are perceiving in ways that we don't fully understand, because we only have this like physical reality to kind of toy around with that we can understand. In very three-dimensional, linear time, all of those things. But that's just what we perceive. That's what we can perceive. But if blind people perceive facial expressions, even though they can't see, that is an interesting thought, to say the least.
It's like Daredevil. If you've seen the comic, I read the comic book Daredevil, he can see, but he can't see like us. He just sees differently because he's blind now, but the way he perceives the world, it's like he sees better. And I all the other senses, they do get heightened when you lose one. At least that's what the science says. But I think that we're so limited in what our perceptions could be based on just the environment that we live in, because we weren't designed to live in this type of environment. We're constantly adjusting to it and it's surviving based on the way we are able to adjust to this kind of technological society. But I have this dream of one day just being like, I just want to be able to separate from all the screens and all the technology, my phone, not look at my phone every 5 freaking seconds one day, and just be able to go outside and be zen with the world and just to perceive let all of my senses take over and just be affected by nature and the reality around us. I think that is what we have lost with the technological advancements. And while technology is good in certain ways, and it's definitely got its bad side as well with the way it can control us, our disconnect from nature, I think, has dulled our senses and I think we're so capable of so much more if we can get in touch with ourselves and with the natural world.
Yeah. I'm with you, man. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, same here.
So we are creeping up towards the magical hour of 2 hours worth of show. So we should probably start doing some wrap up. I don't want to. I could talk forever. But for the sake of people who listen and aren't looking at these beautiful people, we should probably give them some sort of reprieve in that way. So, okay, let's see. What do I want to ask this time? Well, first, this will be easy. I'm supposed to get a new tattoo next month. And I was thinking I would do a tree beard or something like that, because I really resonate with the concept of I'm on no one's side because no one's on my side, and the kind of not that, but insofar as keeping to myself and not putting myself into others' self-caused messes, stuff like that, like being there to help when it matters. But I'm not sold. So any suggestions on my next tattoo?
Let's see.
It's going to go on this arm, probably like right here.
I'm thinking like a Loki, but like cross-dresser, maybe.
Ooh,
Non-binary Loki.
Yes.
A sexy non-binary horse Loki.
That's what I'm thinking.
I would
like
love
Loki
to
with the
see
bottom
what
half
product
of
came
the-
from that. Yeah, you said just give me a sexy non-binary Loki. You take over. Just let his artistic, ability.
That's what came to my mind.
There was this statue that I saw the post on Twitter that was like a statue to 300 deaths of like some agrarian group of people in Italy. And it's literally like a sexy woman sauntering away with like the most perfect butt you've ever seen in your life. And they had this opening ceremony of all these like dignitaries there. And only in Italy could you have a wonderful sexy statue like that. So if you could do the Loki with just like that butt, but then like the rest could be him, that would be nice.
Excellent.
I'm not sold.
I think we've got it. We nailed it already. What do we continue? You got the answer.
It has to be Loki with Brad's face though.
Yeah,
It's got to be me. So, I think
in a black tank top.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm glad I saw that you were wearing the black tank top. I almost forgot. It would have really let you down. I didn't want to do that. So you put. So what you think about? Like, how long would you say you consider like before you get a tattoo? It seems like you have a thought process, and you like to get ones that have meaning for you for the rest of your life, instead of kind of like the one time I was in Chicago, when I lived in Chicago and was really drunk at 4 a.m. I was like, I'm gonna get a tattoo of Georgia so I remember home. Thank God the tattoo parlor was closed, right? I have an idiotic tattoo of the state of Georgia on my shoulder right now. You seem to have meaningful tattoos, and so you are, from my experiences, you're very helpful. You're kind, and you have passion for what you do, and you like to have fun. So, I'm just trying to brainstorm here of the themes of the Cam that I've come to know, and what tattoo might represent that. Get a heart on your ass.
Yeah, and put Brad on it.
Oh,
Watch me actually get that.
That would be great. Oh my gosh. You should totally get that.
No,
I was
Definitely
thinking
need
you a tattoo, Mom, but instead I got Brad on my ass in a heart.
I want to get back to you on that, because I do have ideas about that. Because you do. I like your tattoos because they're meaningful. You have a story behind them, and I don't know. Do you guys have tattoos?
I have one on my right calf, and I got it for my birthday. It was on a Friday the 13th. This was like 2019, before COVID even hit. And I was Friday 13th on my birthday. Oh, nice. Nice. Yeah, that comes around like every so many years, So I was like, I need to get a tattoo. It's just a little cactus with little 13s on it. It's pretty cute.
Did it cost $13 with a $7 tip?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Buffalo
I mean,
paid for it.
Yeah, I gave the guy a good tip because he made it look really cute. So I like it.
awesome.
I don't
That's
I don't have any tattoos, but I would probably be down to get a tattoo if they weren't so like COVID positive at tattoo parlors.
Yeah, like I want more, but now it's really difficult to find a parlor that's just like, you don't have to wear a mask. We're good. So
Yeah.
So yeah,
so
Friday the
interesting that they're like
13th is a tattoo holiday. And so a lot of times what they'll do is they'll create some flash, like mine's a little skull and crossbones, and the eyes are a 13. And it's they typically make a little flash, and you get a $13 tattoo, and you pay a $7 tip, so it costs you $20 to get a tattoo. And so I wanted to have that, and it's just hanging out there, back of my arm, has been forever. I forget it exists often. Jessica just has her Twitter handle, but just right above her rear end, it's a tramp stamp.
On the trap stamp, yeah. Got my Twitter handle back there, but since my Twitter handle has changed, I've had to cross it out and then write the new one.
I'm always so impressed about how much shit you guys can stir up on Twitter. You guys are very good at that.
yeah. Oh yeah.
It's impressive. I love it. People get so angry for the most
I know.
innocuous like comments and observations. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Cam, that tweet you did yesterday with that Hillary.
Oh, yes.
That
If you haven't
kills
seen that,
me.
I'll have to send it to you.
So
Yeah,
if I
you were
get
one of the
to
original
Perfect.
memers, right? Weren't you like an original memer? Not or memer, or what's it? What are they
Oh
called?
yeah,
meme lord,
Well, I was in the Great Meme Wars in 2015 and 2016.
back in whenever I fought in the Great Meme War.
Yeah, back when Paul Reifsteck and Ryan and me and several others were in shit posting groups, and memes and all sorts of different things. Yeah, it's so funny. I made a meme for someone was like, "Hey, could you put this head on this body?" And I just sent it back to him. I think it was like 2 or 3 minutes worth of time that I took to do it. And he was like, "Wow, this is really clean. Did you already have this somehow?" And I was like, "No, I just made it." Like, what program did you use? I do it on my phone. I've been doing this for years. I just do it, and it doesn't take me long. And so it was just so funny because they were like, "Wait, are you like an original memer?" I was like, I guess.
The Great Meme
Oh,
Wars.
gee.
So I have an idea for your tattoo, Cam.
Okay.
I think you should just get a single picked clean chicken bone, right?
To remember my time in Georgia.
To remember your time in Georgia. No,
I
but
love that.
actually, what I was thinking was you would get a Care Bear, but on the belly it would be a tumbler of whiskey.
What I should do is, but I should put,
Nah.
it'd be might be a good
That's
idea. Is to put
nice.
a Care
Right?
Bear
And he's
on
all
my
like-
belly.
Yeah.
Like on my belly.
Like lined up with your belly button.
My
No.
belly button.
That's amazing. You should
No.
totally do that.
No.
Oh, my God.
It's hilarious.
Jiggle it.
That's like
That's so
those,
funny.
that's like those people that get the cat tattoos, and it's like they use their belly
cat's
button
butt.
as the butthole.
Oh my
I
God.
can't.
That is just so sexy.
I can't.
I wonder, being a tattoo artist, the request you must get. That would be kind of, I'm thinking equating that with being a priest when you in confessional. Just the things people must tell you have to be just crazy.
Well, my tattoo artist back in Alabama, I asked him what was the weirdest one that he got, and he said that a guy had come in and he wanted a crotch tattoo. And so what he had done, he came in and he had taken his clippers and he'd shaved a strip out of his pubic hair, and he was like, "I need you to draw a little stick man with a lawnmower right there." And he was like, "That was probably the weirdest one I've seen." Had to go up
Have
all
you
on that
guys
guy's
seen-
crotch.
Not to prolong everything, I know you were trying to get out of here, but have you guys seen The Final Member on Netflix? It was on Netflix. I think it's still on there. It's called The Final Member. No. Well, what it's
Jeffrey
about,
Tubman.
it should, yeah, it could be about Jeffrey Tubman, but it's a documentary about, there's a penis museum. I think it's in Norway or something like that, or
Yes.
Switzerland. And
Okay.
the idea of the museum is they're trying to get a penis of every single organism that exists, or
Huh.
species that exists.
Mhm.
And they put
Huh.
them in a little case, and there's one case in the middle of the museum that they have yet to fill, and that is the human penis. And the documentary follows a couple of people who are possible donors to this case, and one of them is an old man who, when he dies, the idea is like, yeah, I died, you cut my dick off, you put it in the museum, whatever. And then I just like, I don't need it anymore. And then, but this guy, that guy is not from America, right? So the other guy is a hardcore. It's like every Trump supporter that they put on TV who's just like, oh God, I got my redhead, go Trump. Just the biggest redneck person who is just the most insane person you've ever met, and he is bound and determined to make sure the dick that goes in that case is an American dick. So he wants his dick to be there. So he's willing to just slice his right off while he's and so he's getting a tattoo at one point, and while he's getting a tattoo, he's like talking to the tattoo artist, and he's getting a tattoo around his crotch, because his dick's gonna be gone, so he's got to have something there, I guess. And he's going, that's gonna be in the museum one day. Talking about his dick, like talking to the tattoo artist about his dick's gonna get cut off and be put in a museum. You should, if you have some time to watch something really stupid but also kind of funny, watch The Final Member.
I've got time.
That's a pretty.
It might be on YouTube at this
That
point.
is a great title.
The Final Member.
Yeah, it's a great title. Totally.
I find it impossible to believe that there is not a preserved penis available to
They
this
say they
day.
have
Yeah,
Rasputin.
Fauci has all of them though. Fauci won't let his hands off of them. He's got
They should just ask one of the Clintons. I'm sure that has.
yeah. He's got
That's what cures
basement full of
COVID.
them. Yes.
Is ground desiccated human penis.
Right, and then they
So-
give
I
you
don't
the
even know
human
what's in that
penis.
vaccine.
Oh my god.
so many turns.
We just lost YouTube.
You see, you have to ground up the human penis and you put it in the Pfizer vaccine, and it has the efficacy of 100%.
It's actually 110.
We're never gonna get monetized.
Worth it.
So, before I ask the big question, one of the things when we went on your show, Buffalo and Legs, that was really refreshing, at least to me, was that most of the time, not everyone, this isn't a general statement of everyone except for you, but most of the time, when you go on someone's show, they haven't listened to what you've done. They invite you on, they want a little of your clout, they want a little of your audience. But we went on your show and it was like you actually listened to us. You knew our bits. You knew these different things, and it was like, wow, this is insane. I feel appreciated. And so, one, thank you for doing that. But two, that means I can ask you this question, which is, what is your favorite thing about Jessica?
I love that reaction Jessica gives every time you ask that question. That's great.
My favorite thing about Jessica, I love how just when you're watching your show and and someone's talking, she's just like so into the conversation and genuinely wants to hear what people have to say. And I love that, and I appreciate that. And I also appreciate your tweets. there's some funny ones out there. There's some ones that you just stick it to people that are being dumb. And I appreciate that. But I know we don't know each other, like we haven't met in real life, but you seem like a very genuine, kind person, very knowledgeable. You're not afraid to push boundaries, and you're not afraid to question things. And I appreciate that. We need more women like you. That's what I
Thank
like.
you. That's really nice. Thank you.
I agree with everything she said, but I also love that you're radically honest, you're inquisitive, and I love just the inner light that you bring to the show. Not to say, Cam, you don't bring inner light. You
Yes.
bring tons of inner light.
Darkness.
I love your darkness and your light. But I think that you provide such a balance to everything, and just your beauty inside and out. I really appreciate it.
That's so nice, you guys. Thank
That's really
you.
sweet.
It's really sweet.
I feel
Do I
like
have the same question?
Yeah, go for it.
I've addressed this question before, but there's a lot of great things about Jessica, and I was thinking about this because I saw some of your tweets and just listening to you talk when you were talking about you used to be an atheist and your kind of your journey towards your transformation, and before you were tweeting about how you used to smoke a lot of marijuana and your journey, you didn't want to do that anymore. And so you kind of transform. You're not afraid to put yourself out there and to showcase your journey of change. And I think that is so important.
Yes.
Because it's very hard to do that. And most people are unwilling to do that. Yet most people need to see others doing that so that they can be inspired to do it themselves. And I think that you do a fantastic job of that. And it's awesome. It is. It's great. It's brave and it's helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, your authenticity is key.
Yeah,
yes.
and your sassiness.
So also,
I am a sassy broad. That's true.
Another fun thing is that you were both patrons of the Propaganda Report. I know this because I would post things when Brad wasn't around. So I'm just gonna say, what's your guys' favorite thing about Brad? Let's make it a love fest.
I love this. I love this.
Oh my gosh, I love when Brad says things that make Monica cringe. Like,
oh my gosh.
You'll push the limits, and I'm always like, oh, come on, keep going, and I can just picture Monica just sitting there like, oh my god, stop saying those things,
I love that. I love that you push those buttons. I love that your investigation. I really appreciate.
Yeah.
It just same with Monica. I appreciate the way she investigates things. I appreciate your perspectives and the way that you bring, the way that all this kind of New World Order stuff is happening around us. The insight that you bring in terms of how the dots are connected. I really appreciate that as well.
And you put a little comedic spin on it.
Yes, and comedy. I love it.
Which is great.
Thank you. Yeah. That's very sweet. Thank you. That's awesome. I love pushing Monica's buttons sometimes.
I think one of my favorite things about Monica was the first time I did the show when you were gone, and she was like, she didn't know what I would bring to this specific table, and I said something, and her look of was like,
gone? Yeah,
she was
very
so
animated,
excited.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, it's great. It's awesome. Yeah, that's how we FaceTime when we do the show and when we film the Rockfin videos. But that's how I know when I'm onto something to keep further. She just totally lights up.
That spark of lightning.
Yeah.
So,
what I love
used to love me now.
Oh, let me tell what I love about Binkley first.
Do it.
So, Binkley is home folk. And I have known Binkley since back in the day. So that's how long it's been.
Nice.
And you have been making me laugh for 20 years.
Nice.
So I really appreciate you for just being that source of light in my life. When I ran into you through I knew you before. I thought you were funny as hell at Relapse. And then I ran into you in the podcasting world, and I was just like, yes.
I was so excited too.
Yes, yeah. I was overjoyed to run into you in this world, because it's we meet so many great people out here who are on the same level, but to meet somebody that you knew in real life who's clued in, who gets it, it gives me so much hope that I am not an island, that there are people actually around me who come from where I come from, who have figured it out. And that is a huge white pill for me. So thank you.
Wow.
Awesome. Yeah, I was so excited too when we connected through podcast. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, I'll do it then for Brad. This is going to sound so much more superficial, but you're a yes and guy. And so we're both in this level of, I throw something out there, you bolster it, we push it up, and we're able to bounce off of each other really well. I think I get to play straight man at times, you get to play straight man at times. It's just a good mix.
Obviously.
And,
right now,
but I think it's good. And I appreciate anyone who's one of the things that
Oh,
Oh.
your mic died, man.
Oh, I thought he was just thinking.
I thought he was thinking too.
Is he not thinking?
Cam,
hear
we
you.
can't hear you. Yeah, we
No,
can't
you
hear
can't do this to me again. You showed me where the buttons were, but I don't remember.
Still can't hear you.
Uh-oh.
I'll
Just
say
it's your
what I
time to
love about
shine.
It's your
Cam
I
while
believe
he's
in
trying
you.
to figure out his audio.
You're gonna do this. I believe.
Yeah,
in you.
do it, Brad.
Cam, getting to work with Cam on y'all's show, and when he is filled in for Monica, it was nice. It was, you got a great personality, and you are very, you have fun with it. You're okay having fun with it. And I think in this community, it can be easy. You're talking about the white pill, Jessica. I don't like the black pill. There's a lot of black pill people, and I just can't deal with that because it's worthless to me. I understand what people are saying, and I understand looking at things a certain way and what they're saying and how they're feeling. But to me, hopelessness is a useless emotion. And Cam is never hopeless. Cam is always willing to be open-minded, and you're willing to have fun too. You have a good sense of humor. I love your sense of humor.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you
Absolutely.
two are great
Yes.
together.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay.
All right.
Well, what you said was essentially what I was going to say about you. So it was kind of the same thing, which is like, because I strive.
That's why I had you muted.
Getting so
like, like
so
I
gay.
I really strive to see the darkness, talk about the darkness, but bring the light out of it. And I feel like you do the exact same thing. And so I love doing the show with Monica for one reason, and when I do it with you, I love it for a completely different reason. And I always love when you come on here. But it's like finding a brother in the most unusual circumstance.
Yeah, it really is.
I love that.
Oh,
Yay.
Yeah, just a little.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, we're gonna move in together. Remember, you made the joke. We're getting in a place together, Cam and I.
I do remember that. I don't remember what the surrounding context was.
I'd
but I
watch
do
that show.
remember that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So since Brad did it, and y'all have watched our show, what's your favorite thing about me?
Ooh. You want to start? How you go? I have a lot of favorite things about you, Cam.
Okay, then I'll go.
Okay.
Cam, I know I've probably mentioned this before. Your voice is very soothing, and so the first time I heard you on Prop Report, before I started watching Mad Ones, I had this picture of you, soft, soothing voice, and then when I finally saw what you actually look like, I was like, "What? That voice is coming out of that guy?" Unbelievable. But I love your soothing voice. I love your kind nature, your tattoos, your love for family, and your passion for your beliefs. I appreciate all those things, and that's what makes you you. And also your whiskey collection in the background.
Mhm.
I like that too.
Isn't it pretty? Put
It's
so much
beautiful.
work
It's
into
really
it.
pretty.
It's beautiful.
I mean, your apple juice. I'm sorry.
Yes, apple.
Yes,
juice.
apple juice. Bottles of sweet tea, Mom. Don't worry about it.
I love your kind heart, Cam. I love that when we first connected, you were so open and you were just generous with your time, and I appreciate your wittiness on Twitter, especially.
Yes.
It's very reminiscent of Malice, which I know we're both fans of, and I appreciate your snarkiness because I know it comes from a place of love, because I know you, and I know that you're a loving person, and you see the world in a very beautiful way, and I really enjoy hearing about your beliefs, and I really love to I feel like I feel your faith through the screen. And it's a beautiful thing because when we're both experiencing, God, I think it's a wonderful thing. So
Yes.
to me, I'm really glad that we connected because it's like, oh, that's someone I can talk to about this stuff now, Not that I don't talk to her about it, but
Yeah. I get you. No, that's good. I agree.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
We talked about that. We gave you talked about you guys on the show the other day, if I recall. Monica had a shout out for y'all, and she was telling us about y'all's podcast. I remember that was because I remember the idea was so great. I was like, I love the premise. Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool.
For sure.
You know,
yeah, I snuck that in.
Monica used to be on the radio when we were kids, when we were like teenagers in Atlanta. Monica was on the radio. And so the first time I did a podcast with Monica, I told my aunt about it, who's basically my mom, because I was really impressed with the fact that I was going to be on a show with Monica Perez. And she told everyone she knew that I was going to be on the radio with Monica Perez. And I'm like, no, on YouTube, it's a completely different thing. I'm not going to be on the radio. I'm so sorry. So yeah, I was pretty starstruck the first time I got to be. And then Monica is so personable and real, and like I just really got to like appreciate her friendship and appreciate her reality. She's great. Like
She's really
I'll
cool,
talk to
yeah.
Monica for hours. We don't have to record. I just want to talk to Monica.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's what was funny is like I had Monica on the show, and we met because she liked my red pills, and then I was like, I should invite Monica and Brad, and then I was like, actually no, let's just invite Brad. I just want to talk to Brad, and I'm so glad I did that. Not that I don't want Monica here next to you, but I just love that it's not just the coupling; it's
Yeah.
just you.
Yeah. Yeah, Monica, if you ever get a chance to, I know she's not in Georgia. Where are you guys located? You guys aren't located in Georgia either, right? You guys are.
I'm in
I know,
Georgia
I know,
still.
Jessica, you're in Georgia, and you're in Florida, Cam, right? And where
No,
you guys?
we're in Southern California, but we're going up to Idaho.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, so if you ever get a chance to, I know Monica, she'll do a meetup every now and then out in California. That if you get a chance to go to one, hang out with, she's a lot of fun to hang out with. It's really cool.
For sure. Yeah, hopefully she does one soon before we head out. That'd be pretty cool.
We're fixing a jet soon.
Yeah, I would get out of California.
Godspeed, y'all.
And I don't want to rob you of the final most important question because
no.
All right.
it's time for that.
Oh,
So, as you may know, we live in a dark time filled with people who are very depressed, people who are going through some deep, dark stuff, and we need every little bit of hope that we can hold on to that can motivate us into the future. And we can create beautiful things because we need to create. It's in our nature. It's what that's our ideal. It's what we were created for. So, what is something that it can be global, local, nationwide, personal? What is giving you hope right now that keeps you going on that you could share with our audience?
Let's see. Love is real. That gives me hope. God is real. That gives me hope. I do feel like the tide is turning in terms of what's going on in the world. I mean, you have these companies just trying to censor everything. So in a way, we're kind of winning the information war. Overall, my personal thing is love. And as long as you have that in your life, in your heart, and you're spreading it, it will prevail and we will win. Yeah. That's what I hold on to.
Let me just interject. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and anyone who loves is born of God and knows God. So, beloved, let us love one another.
I love
That's
that.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah,
1 John 4, 7 and 8. If you want to look it up.
Basketball player said at the end of his spiel, not his spiel, but when he was giving his reason for not getting vaccinated, he said something like, he ended it by saying, loving other people is not about what color their skin is or about what their beliefs are on certain issues. It's about loving them. It was a great message, and to see somebody with such a platform say something like that, it was great. What gives me hope is the people that I know personally, that I talk to, regardless of what their political beliefs are, they're good. They're good people, and they're kind. And if I was in a bind and I needed help, and they would be there in a second. I remember years ago, actually fractured my hip. I was actually being a big idiot and fractured my hip, and ended up in the hospital for a little while. A whole bunch of my friends just came up to the hospital, and a bunch of my friends from Relapse, and probably all of them disagree with me politically, but they were all there joking around with me, making me laugh and stuff. When it comes down to it, the politics and all this shit they do on the news, the purpose is to divide us, and they try to make us think that we're tearing each other apart through the social media images and all that. But I don't think that's real. I think that what's real is that the people that we know and the people we interact with, if we don't let that poison things, and most people don't, most people are good people, and they have good hearts, and they they want to they just want to do their thing and live their life. And I believe in peoples, and that's what kind of white pills me.
Here. That's so
Love it.
true. I love
great.
the thing that I had that gives me hope is we don't really know this one family that's become a family friend of my parents in Idaho. They've been very helpful to my parents. My parents are down here in California now, and when she called, my mom called to tell them we were moving up there. They were so happy that we were going up there, and we've only known them maybe max like 5 days since we went up and visited and met them once, and they were excited to see us. And to me, it's that connection. As long as we keep spreading that connection where we want to be with each other, that's holy in itself. And that's my white pill. That's my white pill right there.
It's great.
1000%.
Positive vibes are infectious.
Yes.
Yep. The news only wants to show you the negative stories.
Yeah.
So you don't see that people can be so good. And they are so good to each other. And you don't hear about it because it's not what sells newspapers or, airtime or ad time or whatever. But by and large, people are being so excellent to each other.
Yes.
And, none of the propaganda would be necessary if we weren't winning. Yeah. And we're winning. And I think St. Paisios was the one who said it, that so much about this world would drive me mad if I didn't know that in the end, God would triumph.
Yes.
So
I always get goosebumps when I come on your show. It's great.
This was really
that's
fun.
what we're here for. That is one of those things that there was a big shift in our show, and it was a very deliberate shift. And it was one that was pressed on my heart, and I was punched in the stomach because I realized I had been doing things wrong. And some fruit from that shift has already started coming in. And I've felt fulfilled in some ways before, but I've never felt more fulfilled than I do right now doing this show. So I'm very happy with that. That's a white pill for me. But it's been 2 hours and 30 minutes. If anyone made it this far, I owe you a soda or something. But I should let you know where to find these wonderful people, and then go through our whole deal, which y'all can hang out in here for that, or I can take you out and you can not be in here, up to you. But if you'd like to find Buffalo and Legs, first off, if you want to talk to them, they're on Twitter. I'm sure they're on Instagram too. I know they are because they tagged me today, and I barely use Instagram. I don't know. I can't. Is it the same?
It's the same handle. Same handle.
Good. So if you want to follow them on Twitter or Instagram at FRC Pod, if you'd like to listen to their very soothing voices on their podcast, they are on falserealitycheck.com. You're on all the podcasting platforms as well, correct?
Yes.
And also,
I love that name, by the way. It's a great name.
I'm surprised. I can't believe you got the URL. That's so incredible.
I had to buy it right away.
But also, they are on Rockfin. We are on Rockfin. Brad and Monica are on Rockfin. So if you want to get all of our content and special content, you can do it in one place with one subscription for $9.99 a month, and you get extra stuff that other people don't get. So consider doing that for them. And you can use my link though.
With YouTube censored and everything too. That's where you need to go.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. If you want to find Brad, if you want to talk to him, he will talk back very rarely, and you have to say something. It has to be a banging tweet if you get a response. But he is on Twitter at Freedom Act Radio, and you can listen to the Propaganda Report on thepropreport.com. They are on all the platforms. They're on Patreon if you want to get their special sauce. Rockfin. Where else? Is there anything else, or is that it?
I think that's well, the propreport.com is our website. Did you say that? I think that
Yeah.
that is it. And what I do on Twitter is like so we do the show daily, and then I'll edit it, then put it up and stuff. And by the time I'm done, I'm just like, I gotta get away from the screen. And I gotta get away from it. And so I'll put my phone down too, and I'll walk my dog, or I'll go outside just 'cause I'll go crazy. But so I'll tend to kind of like, there'll be a while that I don't respond or say to much, but then there'll be like a flurry of like a week where I just try to respond to everything I've missed for like the past month. So that's kind of my habit of responsiveness on social media.
Yeah. Well, I'm just glad we spoke and we got you on here today, because I didn't know if it was going to happen, and I wanted it to be a surprise. And I'm going to have to change my titles so that it shows your name. But other than that, thank you guys for coming on. Thank you for, I mean, it's a good show when we get to 2.5 hours. Because otherwise we wouldn't be here. It would be this would have ended an hour ago. So thank you for coming on and having a genuine conversation with us. But now we get to talk about our stuff. Spooky month starts next week. First up on the docket is Jack Luna. He has a show called Dark Topic. It is, I don't really listen to a lot of true crime anymore, but he impressed me with his storytelling ability when he did true crime podcasts. He still does. So I'm going to have to listen to a bunch this week just to get my brain back in on that train. We'll talk to him next week. Then we have Cody Cook and our friend Ryan Burgett from Technoagrist coming on, and we're going to talk about the Council of God. We called it the Interdimensional Beings Chat, but it's going to be talking about kind of the hierarchy of spiritual beings and how they've affected the world, how they currently affect the world, different stuff like that. Then following that, your buddies, the Occult Rejects, are coming on. They
I'm
were
excited
both
about that.
part of secret satanic societies and got out of it, and we're going to talk about what the hell that's about. So that'll be fun. And then adding, like we talked about earlier, we're going to have Chris Date from Rethinking Hell on the show, and we're going to talk about what the preferred term is: conditional immortality, not immorality. Conditional immortality. We're going to talk about hell. But other than that, here's how you can find us. If you want to find me on Twitter at Cam Harless, Jessica is at Soup Canarchist. Like I said before, if you want good coffee, ROIMcoffee.com. Use promo code The Mad Ones. If you like beef jerky, righteousfelon.com, promo code Mad Ones. Like we said, we're also on Rockfin, patreon.com/The Mad Ones. I've started loading in our backlog, and I created an RSS feed on there so that you can listen to all of our old episodes from there. I'm also working on how we're going to offer some different exclusives and perks in there as well. We're trying to make things make more sense and kind of cover more of the costs of the show, because as life ebbs and flows, things get tougher and easier, and we just need a consistent base there.
Making a podcast is very hard work. It
is.
People who haven't delved into it, I don't know, realize it can be very, very challenging. The preparation, the editing, get everything up. It does require a lot of hard work, and I know you guys put in tons of work with everything y'all do.
Yeah. And there's a lot of creativity. I love every week. Jessica gets ready at some point for me to send her different pictures that I'm going to use to make the art, and then a list of titles. It's usually about 7 different titles, and then she picks the one she likes the best.
Wow.
Some of them are like, I really like, but she's right, it won't give the information that's needed. But it's like, oh man, I really love that one.
They're really poetic, but I don't think that the casual scroller through YouTube will get the sense of what the episode is actually about, even though they're very creative. I hate to cast them off.
You're balancing the creativity with practicalness.
Also, speaking of creativity, if you would like a shirt with mine and Jessica's face on it, like Buffalo here is wearing, or if you want a black tank top that says the name of the show, or a t-shirt or a hoodie, any of that, we're themadones.com/store. We're on YouTube. If you're listening, you can watch this instead. YouTube.com/themadones. And we're also on Odyssey. So Odyssey's great because it's on the blockchain. It backs up every single episode we do. We can't be canceled. So even if Rockfin decided we said some stuff, I don't think they will, but if they decided, oh, you said some stuff that was too far, it's still going to be on Odyssey and on the library blockchain. So you can check us out there. Other than that, check out any of the other shows that me or Ryan edit at mlganetwork.com. That's all I've got for you. All the plugs. Anything you want to say to this tired audience before you go pee, Jessica?
I have to pee.
Let it go,
Every
girl.
time.
Just let it go.
And so I will let Brad give the parting words, and you'll see and hear our outro.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you for having us all on. This has been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed my entire time here. I need to take this thing off my head and start to work on removing the mark. But you guys do a great show. Check out the Mad Ones, and we'll talk to you next time. What's y'all's website?
We are themadones.com.
I know we're themadones.com, but what is what website, y'all? I know I'm trying to remember it off the top of my head.
FalseRealityCheck.com.
FalseRealityCheck.com and MadOnes.com. Check it out. Thank you guys. Peace.
Peace.